Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashtarothi, and this is Zoe. And it is February 20th, YC128, and this is the Eve Universe Show. Welcome, 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 guys. How's it going? We are here. Hold on. Zoe. Oh, nope, she got a treat now. She's here for it. Like the stream for the puppy. I did just get her a new collar, by the way. Somebody, for the person who donated money for treats for her. I did get her new treats, but I also got her a brand new collar, so now she's nice and comfortable that way. But this is not about this today. We have so much to cover today. CCP just decided to spoil basically the next 2 months worth of content, or month or so worth of content. So we have a lot of things to cover. We really have 3 different videos to react to today, which is we have the Pulse video that just came out today. We have the Vanguard video that came out a day or 2 ago. And then we have Salvador Sarpati for president. Hell yeah. And we have the Oz report. I was on the fence about reacting to that one, but people have been really, really asking for it. So that means that we have a lot of different things to watch and react to today. So I actually, in order to follow the promises of this week, we will be doing high-sec anomalies in my Stormbringer while watching those videos. Wow. Is my audio okay? I keep playing with my audio, and it should be fine, but I just saw it, like, peg. I know, I'm so focused about... That's the one where it calls it Cataclysm and gets corrected. Hell yeah! All the best YouTubers call Catalyst Cataclysm. Sounds pretty good. Okay, great. If there's any problems, let me know. Otherwise, I'm just going to pretend like it's all fine. By the way, guys, so the election is coming up soon. I do have the video. If you haven't watched the New Eden News from the other day, yeah, that's a microphone. I have the edited video of that coming out in just about 5 hours from this live recording. So make sure to check that out. If you're a member, it's already available to you. Members get videos about a day early. But we do have a lot to jump into. First, I want to cover the last couple of days of patch notes, though. We have this one from yesterday, which was pretty big, actually. Faction Warfare. Players attempting to warp while inside of a warp disruption bubble, while in corruption levels 5 systems, will no longer cause the person who bubbled to lose standings with the NPC corporation or faction that the player belongs to. This means that players in Faction Warfare will no longer get standings hits from an allied member of their militia trying to warp in their bubbles. This is huge. I know that there was the standings one from the other day. It seems to be a lot more controversial than this. This one is just strictly good. The fact that bubbles, so basically the way it works is if somebody puts well, first of all, normally bubbles are not allowed in low sec, right? They're only in null sec. Bubbles are basically prevent all warping in and out of them while they are up, unless you have interdiction nullification. Commonly only seen in nullsec. However, when a system becomes corrupted 5, they are able to be launched in lowsec. There was an immediate problem with this, whereas basically if somebody tries to warp while in the bubble, it causes it to fail. And that's considered a hostile action. And so because it's considered a hostile action against an enemy, against another player, it can cause, or it was able to cause, standing hits. So, you know, if you're all in a militia fleet or whatever, and one person bubbles, and a bunch of people try to warp while in the bubble, you get a bunch of hits to your standings, and you could even get kicked out of the militia. Not great, didn't make very much sense, and was very bad. So this fix is just, strictly speaking, just correcting it. I find it, the fact that you lose standings at all, this is just a mistake from the jump. Because like I said, normally nullsec is the only place to do these kinds of bubbles, and I don't think that nullsec has those kinds of standings hits in them against other players. So like this should just never have been a thing, and yet it was. It took them way too long to fix, but it's fixed now. So yay. bear in mind, this does not affect things like smart bombs or bombs, you know, things that are actually like attacks, not targeted attacks, but, you know, attacks. So that's a big one. They also fixed the mouse cursor sizes. Yeah, no standings changes in null, only against rats. Larger mouse. What are you doing, Zoe? Oh, I see. There's another treat here. Here. Come here. Come here. They want to say hi. Hold on. Yeah, they want to say hi. Okay. Here you go. Why don't we call this good? Hello? Improvising. Here we go. All right. But yeah, no standings hits, just an FC losing their mind on you. That's correct. All right. So then they also fixed the thing with planetary interaction with larger cursors, and they also fixed the volatility of Marcoxic mining crystals, which I don't even know was a problem, but it was, and now it's fixed. And then they also fixed a thing where entering moving mode for messages didn't work. Just in case you don't know what moving mode is, for that, if we hop into the game real quick, this is just going to be my opportunity to show you guys this, just in case you didn't know. If we undock, how's it going, guys? Are we excited about the election? I have mixed feelings about it. So, okay. Basically, like if I align to, no, that's not even going to work. Either way, if we go to the little cheeseburger menu down here in the lower right of options, we can go enter moving mode for messages. So this allows you to place where messages appear, including like damage reports. So I can put my damage reports up here. And so you can kind of put these wherever you want them to be. And then if you hit X, that locks them into where they are. Apparently that was broken. Now it's not. Yay. That's good. All right. But then today there is only one thing, like Japanese localization and Plex logs not loading in the Plex wallet. Cool. So not too much with that, but this change here was pretty big. So I wanted to make sure to point that out. But let's go ahead and get started. So what we're going to do is we're going to watch, first we're going to watch the Pulse, then the Vanguard video, and then the MER, or the Oz report video, because he, like I said, a lot of people have been saying that they want me to cover that. So we're going to do the Oz report too. Obviously, I do recommend, there's links for all three of these videos down below. I strongly recommend and ask that you go and watch those videos. We're not trying to take views away from other content creators, least of all Oz, great YouTube content creator. So make sure to go check those videos out if you can. And because of this, because we're going to also be doing stuff in the game, we're going to put it in the lower right-hand corner. Hold on. And boop. All right, so this is going to be where it is for the video, just because most of the thing is going to be its audio. We're going to cover that. Actually, you know, we're going to do the Pulse like this. Let's go ahead and get it started. Wait. Desktop audio. There we go.
The EVE Online Director's Letter, EVE Evolved, the Gallente election, and more. Coming to you from the heart of GT441.
This Pulse spoils everything. We've been sitting here waiting for these little details to come out, you know, all that stuff. So this spoils the election, it spoils the event, and it even spoils next week's EVE Evolved. So lots of really useful information in this thing. Let's go. Normally Pulse comes out after the fact of things being announced. Today, for whatever reason, the Pulse manages to be breaking news. So here we go.
Once more, this is the Pulse. The Director's Letter for EVE Online was published recently, looking at the roadmap for EVE in 2026 and beyond.
We did cover this entire roadmap a few days ago. Make sure to go check out that video if you want, if you need to. or want to. Yeah, but here we go.
Starting with a recap of 2025 in New Eden, the letter introduces the 3 expansion saga to begin this year, which aims to elevate factional warfare.
I don't know if it was an accident or not. I mean, maybe this could have been put out next week, but I also don't think that they really mind too much.
Into a war with real stakes begin this year, which aims to elevate factional warfare into a war with real stakes and pull new capsuleers into the fight, formalizing military campaigns as a core element of EVE and feeling the effects of Empire conflict beyond the war zone. 2026 will also bring expansion major updates and a new crossover EVE Online and EVE Vanguard World event, with the development of Vanguard continuing through open and closed playtests, incorporating your feedback to shape the experience. Capsuleer Day, Crimson Harvest, Winter Nexus and the Alliance Tournament will also be returning in 2026. Also mentioned in the director's letter is the ongoing EVE Evolved initiative. The long-term goal of realizing EVE Forever sees more personalization options added with Neocom colors, resizable cursor, and expanded Corp palette integration, as well as Aura guidance, an optional in-development chat tool designed to help new capsuleers find their footing based on real rookie help channel conversations.
So we've covered both of those as well, and talked about it all. Including the Aura guidance thing. If you want, I have a 4-hour video from a few days ago where we play around with Aura for a while. My overall review of it is that it's a pretty half-baked thing. It really does, like, it should be the perfect use case for this kind of AI system, and yet it really does, in my opinion, show off a lot of the things that are kind of wrong with the current iteration of AI. But you can see more about that as we poke at it in the longer video. But keeping on going.
Furthermore, an upcoming EVE Evolved update will bring art and VFX upgrades such as an overhaul of mineable asteroid visuals, improvements to ore frigate lighting and effects, and more.
There you go. So we were kind of guessing what is going to be next week's EVE Evolved, and here we are. Yeah, you were half right, Malak. Malak was wanting new lighting effects on cruisers and stuff. You know, we knew that like EVE Evolved is definitely about like graphics and engine updates and stuff like that. So in this case, you know, we see and it makes sense that this is happening during you know, the Catalyst expansion, which is all about mining and stuff. So they're redoing the ore, the visuals and stuff, and adding new lighting to the mining frigates, which is, I mean, I guess, sure. I don't know. I gotta wonder why they're rolling out these lighting effects so slowly, except for maybe the fact that, like, when they already had to roll back some of the stuff because of performance issues with the super carriers, carriers, I think. But either way, so this is coming next week, right? Should be. So the ore changes, they look pretty and shiny, as well as the new lighting effects on the Venture, which, hold on a second. Let me see. Do I have a Venture ready to go? No. Let me just buy one real quick. Usually, I can't compare the two because by the time they come out with it, it's just loaded into the game. But if they have a picture of it, then I can pull up my own Venture, hop in it, and we can see what the difference is. Oh, yeah. I can already see. Yes, they do need to fix missile flashbangs, but the difference is that that is a bug, and that's a whole different track of development. You know, bugs are bugs because things are wrong. It doesn't mean that, like, they're not at the same kind of track for fixing. So it makes it, like, yeah, I get the frustration. They absolutely do need to work on it, but yeah, one does not preclude the other, if that makes sense. So, all right. So we can see here on the, so we can see the lights along the top side here that don't exist on my Venture, I don't think. And then also these lights here and back here, and maybe a couple others here and there. Hold on, let's go double check. So yeah, none of those things are lit up here. You can really see yeah. So all of these top lights are not currently on the Venture. So looks like they're doing that. Cool. All right.
Docking permission requested. Docking request.
Let's keep going.
Be sure to check out the individual dev blogs and dev chats for all the details. With the impeachment of former...
I do find it interesting, like especially after they did the lighting for the carriers, and like I said, there were some problems with that. So like, what I notice here is that all of these lights are not actual lighting, you know, like they're glowing effects, not necessarily like a light. So if another ship was nearby this ship, it wouldn't like glow onto, like the jets here are a lighting effect because you can see it's kind of lighting up the area around it. Whereas all of the new lights that they put in are actually not legitimate, like like lighting, right? They're just glowing effects. So that makes sense because that would make it much more performant.
Individual dev blogs and dev chats for all the details. With the impeachment of former Gallente President Celeste Agard, the upcoming Gallente presidential election will be quite the event. 3 distinct candidates will be vying for support come March. They are Soraya Roden of the...
So before we jump into this, just again, in a couple of hours, we did the last 2 dev blogs, which introduced us to some of these characters, and I do speculate in that, some of the stuff about it. But of course, as of yesterday, the only one that was confirmed is this first one, Soraya Roden. The other 2 are now confirmed, so we have the three candidates. So here we go.
3 distinct candidates will be vying for support come March. They are Soraya Roden of the Progressives Party, who will be campaigning for corporate freedom, privatized robotics development, and a more aggressive military stance. Lucas Tenzin, an independent candidate who aims to represent better support for the disadvantaged, human advancement, federal unity, defense and diplomacy, and Alex Moreau of the Autonomist Party, who will be advocating for self-determination, unlimited scientific exploration, and radical democratic reform.
Okay, so what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to put up a poll. Let's start a poll. Who are you voting for in the Gallente election? We got Roden, we've got Lucas, and we've got Alex. So we've got Alex from the, hold on, what was it? Alex, which is Autonomous Party. Lucas is...
Diplomacy, and Alex Moreau, human advancement.
Independent. And Roden is progressive, right? Progressive. And I probably spelled everything wrong. There we go. Independent, autonomous. There we go. And we're going to start the poll. Go ahead and vote.
Advancement, federal unity, defense and diplomacy, and Alex Moreau of the Autonomist Party, who will be advocating for self-determination, unlimited scientific exploration, and radical democratic reform. Keep an eye on broadcasts across space for more information regarding the election and how to cast your vote, take on challenges, and earn rewards.
Okay, so based on that, I've got good news and I've got bad news for everyone. The bad news is apparently it's just totally fine for independent capsuleers to vote in democracy, the Gallente democracy, which is, this is honestly what I was kind of afraid of from the beginning when this started to become like a bigger and bigger thing. I was concerned that if like there's historically, the Gallente elections has been like this side thing that happens in like New Eden News, but there's very little impact that we have on the elections because we're not Gallente citizens. At least a lot of us aren't Gallente citizens. But it seems like I guess if we're going to delay the elections for a year, we're also just going to let non-citizens vote. I don't know all the details yet. We don't know all the details yet, but apparently there's going to be a way for us to cast our vote one way or another. Fine, it's a video game. But that being said, it does make me kind of want to vote for her because, like,
who will be advocating for self-determination, unlimited scientific exploration, and radical democratic reform.
something tells me if we're going to let all of the Capsuleers vote that we're going to need some radical democratic reform afterwards. But that's what I think. Like I said, go ahead and give me your guys' votes. Maybe only faction warfare participants. Even then, they're not citizens. You'd have to be born Galente. I don't know. I've always said that what I'd like to see happen is that there's some sort of disruption. So we're trying to help enable the real votes. So by like doing stuff in specific areas or doing stuff in specific things, like we are helping those votes count more than casting our own votes. But I don't know, man. I guess it's a video game. So here we go. But it is worth noting that like it looks like it's going to be Rogue Drone focused for this event as well.
Your vote, take on challenges, and earn rewards. EVE FanFest is fast approaching and tickets are scarce. FanFest festivities run all week, and we recently announced some of the activities planned. From glaciers and adventures around Iceland to curated food and brewery experiences, the EVE tours are designed to give Capsuleers a deeper taste of Iceland during FanFest week.
You know, I was wondering about that, because if you go into the background, you can see, oh yeah, no, there's the three of them right there, right? That's all three of them, because that is Lucas, that's Alex, and I think that's Rodin? It's hard to tell because she's from behind, but it looks like Rodin from behind.
Adventures around Iceland to curated food and brewery experiences, the EVE tours are designed to give Capsuleers a deeper taste of Iceland during FanFest week. Also this year, we will shine a light on our fantastic creators by hosting the inaugural EVE Creator Awards, designed to recognize the people shaping the universe beyond the game. Nominations are now open, with finalists to be selected by a CCP jury and winners to be announced live at FanFest. The CSM20 summit has concluded, with all 12 council members braving winter storms to attend the CCP studios here in Reykjavik. All aspects of EVE were discussed, including feedback on the upcoming expansion, more insight into the future vision, monetization, ship balance, resources, the state of ESI, conflict drivers, and much more.
We covered this video as well already, so you can go watch that in the history.
As is now tradition, the CSM also gave their own presentations to CCP, sharing their insights into various gameplay styles and topics, which were broadcast company-wide. You can expect a full breakdown in the coming weeks, but CSM members are already sharing their feedback from the summit on community Discord servers, podcasts, and write-ups. Players have been busy utilizing resources that came in with the Catalyst expansion. There are conflicts flaring in every corner of the map, with fresh metas evolving, inventive carrier deployments, brazen dread bombs, and dozens of brutal clashes over metanoxes, skyhooks, customs offices, ansiblexes, and upwell structures. Undoubtedly the largest was the clash between Winterco and the Imperium in the system of Atioth, where roughly 4,500 of you fought over the fate of a Test Alliance Please Ignore Keepstar. Of course you'd celebrate Valentine's Day with destruction.
Did that happen on Valentine's Day? That's pretty funny, actually. All right.
Celebrate the Lunar New Year with a free gift, new packs, and Twitch drops. Claim your Lunar New Year gift in the new Eden store, containing 8 Plex, a brand new Unbridled Glory skin, and a Skinner component. Lunar New Year packs in the EVE store feature skill points, cerebral accelerators, more brand new Unbridled Glory skins, Skinner components, and more.
We also covered these the other day. The short of it is I'm honestly kind of disappointed in these skins because they lack any of the special effects of the previous New Year skin.
Packs are available until
Lunar
the
New
4th
Year,
of March.
whatever.
There are also Lunar New Year themed Twitch drops active now, also until the 4th of March.
That said, make sure. So actually, here's the weird thing about that. So when is it till?
There are also Lunar New Year themed Twitch drops active now, also until the 4th of March.
Okay, so just so you guys know, because I've been working on this, you know, if you watch the streams right now, you get the booster, the agency booster, but I mentioned earlier that it might be like the next one hidden underneath it. It is not. I don't know. Like, I think in a couple of days or they might start the next one. But right now, the Vedmak skin is not available as far as I've been able to figure out on the Twitch drops. You can only get the agency support booster right now. It may still be a good idea to get the agency support booster, like get that time completed, because when the Vedmak comes out, it may, in fact, you need to complete one to get the next. I'll be keeping an eye on that, and we'll be probably posting about it in the Discord if any news comes up, because the Vedmak one does look pretty cool, especially if it's free.
That's all for this episode of The Pulse. Thank you for joining
that's
us.
it.
Remember to check the...
All right, so that is it for The Pulse. And like I said, it spoils next week's news as well as the Gallente election. Votes, please, above, and let me know in the comments down below if you're watching after the fact who you're interested in voting for. We're going to have to figure out what we want to do as a convocation. I suspect that we're going to potentially follow the Autonomous Party, just because I know that there's a lot of people. If anybody supports anybody within the Gallente right now, it's the Intaki Autonomous. But we'll have to see. I'm gonna see what people have to say before we make any final, like. And we're also gonna have to see the rules and like how it all plays out. Maybe everybody will just be able to vote for whoever they want. I don't know. We'll have to see the exact details, but that is coming soon. And so that is it for the Pulse. So we're going to get started. What are we going to do for the rest of today? What we're going to do is we're going to hop back into my Stormbringer. What is happening? Wait, what? That was so weird. My UI was hidden, or like the Neocom was hidden, and then when I hit show UI, the Neocom showed back up, but the whole time the rest of my things were visible. I don't know, it just went wrong. Any rate, we're going to hop into a Stormbringer, and we are going to... So recently, not recently, but you know, within the last year or so, they added an extra high slot to the Stormbringer, and so I have put a Sister Core Probe Launcher. So we're just going to run around HiSec, and we're going to go after dens, I think, and also we're going to probe things down to see if there's any sites. I'm going to just do everything I can possibly get my hands on with the Stormbringer. I should be able to survive everything in HiSec, but this is just going to be something that we do while we listen to and react to the videos. So let's go ahead and get started with that. Hold on. Pop over to this one. And we're going to start with the Vanguard Uplink podcast, The Road to Alpha. So this one came out, I think, a day or two ago. You know, Vanguard is, of course, the shooter. The latest news was they were supposed to go into like open beta over the summer, but now they've decided that they're not going to do that until next year. But there is going to be this Eve Vanguard event over the summer based on war fronts, or the military campaigns and such, which I think honestly is kind of a good idea, especially just to throw this out there before we jump into this. I've been thinking a lot about this, and like if you pay attention to things like High Guard, what's been going on with High Guard, what happened to Concord, what happened to a lot of these different games, you know, there are some games that are coming out within this genre that are doing extraordinarily well. You know, things like what is it? Helldroppers? What? No, god damn it. Whatever that game is. There are multiple like extraction shooters and stuff that have done extremely well in the last couple of in the last year or two, but also there's been a couple of these, you know, arena / extraction shooter / you know, team shooter stuff. Helldivers. Yeah, okay, I was close. That have gone hysterically badly. And so, like, I kind of appreciate the fact that CCP doesn't necessarily want it to be in front of everyone right now, and, you know, make sure that it is, because, like, if they put it out half-assed and people end up hating it, it will just get panned. And so, you know, we're going to spend some more time in, you know, just us, and then this winter we're supposed to get our first like playtest on Steam, which is going to expose it to a whole different population before it's, you know, the full release of open beta or whatever, or I guess open alpha whatever they want to call it. We're going to find more information out during this video. And so let's jump into it. Yeah, the mono game mode FPS games flopping and are trying to expand their offer. I'm telling you, man, if I was building a first-person shooter right now and I watched what happened to Concord and to Helldiver, or not Helldivers, I got it right earlier, the other one, I would also be second-guessing how ready we are for prime time.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Vanguard Uplink podcast. I am your host CCP Gortz, and joining me, as he so often does,
Haven't moved
from this spot, but we'll come to that. It's my good friend
All right,
and your
here we
good
go.
friend, CCP Collins. Hello.
Hello.
It's been a while.
Before Christmas, right?
Before Christmas.
Well before Christmas, I think was the last one we did.
Yeah. Where you been?
Don't know. I apologise. I don't keep track of the shirts and caps that I wear.
Right.
I may have been wearing the same outfit in the last video. I do have other outfits.
It's fine.
Yes.
That's fine. But the most important thing is you're back.
Yep. We back.
We back. Some
Yeah.
would say we never left. We just weren't very public facing. So,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, but we're here to address that now. Because you left me here. You went off to Iceland
Yep.
to film the director's letter.
I did. I wasn't even there for the director's letter. They just found me wandering the halls. No, I was specifically there for the director's
You must
letter.
have at least got on a... Is there a portal that I don't know about in the London office?
Yeah. Actually, we've been it's all trickery. We are in Iceland right now.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think that having played Vanguard, it's been pretty fun, but I can absolutely understand that it's like, there's a difference between somebody who's into EVE Online, who really likes just playing around with a kind of a 3/4 of a game, and just an outside observer looking at the universe the first time through this lens. Very different experiences. Honestly, it's something I've been saying for a while now, that Vanguard only being an extraction shooter isn't enough for long-term interest without some level of player persistence. Yeah, and the good news is that CCP agrees with that, right? They started with an extraction shooter because it was like the foundation of it, and then they can build off from that. And they basically, that's been one of their biggest focuses, is to kind of see what else it can be besides just an extraction shooter. But yeah.
It feels like it.
Yeah.
It feels like it. Anyway, in this director's letter, you, CCP Collins, it's very, very Newsnight, isn't it? You,
Yeah.
you,
All right, Paxman.
Yeah. Bit of a Kirsty Wark man myself. You talks about the road to Alpha. So catch us up. Tell us about the road to Alpha for Vanguard.
Yeah, so we've been in pre-alpha now since 2023. We first announced the game at FanFest all that time ago, and pre-alpha's been, it's been great for us. We've been able to experiment, add a lot of prototypes to the game, gathered a huge amount of feedback, do what a lot of games don't get to do, which is get all of that feedback, all of those playtests, all of the technical niggles, kind of out the way before you reach into alpha. A lot of times you'll see games that are kind of at the end of alpha going into early access. You've seen the game for the last 2.5 years in pre-alpha. So what we want to do now, the next steps for us, is to move into alpha. And what that normally is, it's kind of a much tighter, far more polished version of the game. So we're not going to have as many prototypes in it, not as many kind of placeholder or experimental features. We've kind of had that time to experiment. We've gathered a huge amount of feedback, and especially kind of culminating with Operation Nemesis at the end of last year, really understanding a lot more about what people like, what people don't like, and how we can shape that, and I should say, getting feedback from a lot of different angles. So people who are heavily invested in EVE, people who are, heavily invested in Dust, people who are new to Vanguard but exist in EVE, people are new to the universe altogether. We got a huge...
A little bit of a jump in here. I did find a site. By the way, I'm not looking up any of the sites. I can't remember which sites I can and cannot get into in the Stormbringer, so we're just going to try, and if we can't, we just move on to the next one, okay?
amount of feedback from all of those different cohorts of people, and it's allowed us to kind of go, right, what's right for the next steps. So what we're working on now, and we're back. We started working on this in the onset of January when we came back from the new year, is we're working towards delivering that first alpha, which is a tighter, more focused, but far more polished version of Vanguard. It's going to feel like a solid foundation that plays well and looks well. Well, yeah. Plays great and looks great, and is a much more tighter representation of what we want this game to play like. I think Operation Nemesis was a bit too open and a bit loose in places. There are lots of different experiments and ideas, some of which weren't really necessarily coming together. And there were some criticisms to some of the core parts of the game as well, the general mode in the sandbox, as well as some of the gunplay and the enemy work. So that we've all taken into, we want to improve, we want to kind of put a version forwards for alpha that is it feels more finished, a more finished idea of what this game should be that we can then continue to build on. And I think I said in the director's letter, but I will repeat it here because it's great news. We'll announce the dates at FanFest this year, but we're aiming for an alpha playtest on Steam in the summer.
Okay, so we have had a lot of questions since the director's letter coming from our Discord community.
Wait, I thought they said in the director's letter that the Steam one was going to be the winter. Gosh darn it, I can't get into anything, can I? That's probably going to be the case. But
Warp drive active.
yeah, okay. Well, I wonder how that's going to play out.
I mean, a lot. Fans
good.
there are hungry for info. So I've got about 10 here, which we'll try and fire through as best we can. Apologies if I don't get to your question. We will try and catch anything we missed on Discord. That's how it goes. Right, Collins.
I'm ready.
He's ready.
I'm ready.
He's ready. Okay, what? Sorry. What is the current broad idea about the gameplay archetypes, like the type of Vanguard and designs going forward?
Yeah, so the broad idea is rooted in some... I'm not going to waffle too much about this because I go on this a lot. Rooted in the idea that's already in EVE Online, that people will play the game however they want to. Whether you like it or not, people tend to go into these ideas. It's called something I really enjoy is called the Bartle taxonomy on player types. You can Google that if you want to. But it genuinely...
Bartle's player types. Okay, well, already invoking Bartle's taxonomy. That's I talk about it a lot. That's the explorers, killers, achievers, and socializers.
He categorizes people into like killers, achievers, socializers, and explorers. And it's really actually almost too perfect that the full career program playstyles in EVE Online match into that. You've got soldiers of fortune, industrialists, enforcers, and
it's perfect. You mean it was also based off of Bartle's taxonomy? Like, don't act like it's a coincidence.
Explorers. And so we kind of want to adopt that kind of different playstyles. Industry is a big part of the game. Killing people is a big part of the game. Socializing, we want to be a bigger part of the game. And exploration is something that we want to lean into as well. So
that'd be
there won't be
interesting.
hard playstyles. It won't be like a class system. But the equipment that we make, the activities that we add to the world, and the objectives that you will be given will kind of be more tailored towards, helping you to specialize along these paths, or just be a jack of all trades if you want to. But if you want to lean into being better at killing people, or lean into being better at industrialization, the way that you kit yourself out and the objectives that you take on and the things that you're buying and manufacturing, allow you to lean into those playstyles, and that's still something we feel quite strongly about, and we want in the game. Right now, I think the game is a bit more tailored towards killing people and socializing, with a little bit of industrialization and not much exploration. But we hope as we keep adding more content to the game, that'll start to even out over.
For the record, industrialization is not one of the Bartle types. Bartle types are not monocultures in isolation; they're overlapping Venn diagrams. Well, so the big point there is that Bartle taxonomy addresses the way people play a game, not the player itself, right? So like it's not like a player is and represents only one, like a player is a killer or a player is an explorer. But while the idea was, okay, just a little bit of history with this. Bartle worked for Ultima Online, and the whole point of it was like they're trying to figure out why people play the game. And so he did a bunch of interviews with a bunch of people in order to try to figure out like what people find fun in the game, et cetera, like what motivates players within the game. And what he found is that certain aspects of things are clustered together, that there are 4 primary motivations in play. Not that any one person only represents one of those things, but that basically there are, a player could manifest as one of these 4 at any given time. I've talked about before, like I might switch from being an explorer to a killer if the situation presents itself. But the point is that these aspects, the taxonomy kind of clusters certain details about play and motivation together. And the thing that most game developers take from Bartle taxonomy is the way that these motivations interact with each other, right? The fact that killers suppress achievers, explorers suppress killers, and socializers reinforce socializers, right? Like the relationship between the different motivations is a lot of what game developers pulled out of Bartle's taxonomy.
Good time.
Can you talk a bit more about the player suits, or are we holding off on that one?
Yeah, well, it's still something we're working towards, and we still need to nail the first one. We've tried, and I don't mind saying failed in a few places over the last kind of 18 months in trying to.
Hold on, my monitor is being all weird. Gosh darn it. Okay, hopefully that's not messing with you guys. Is my vision? Has my screens been messing up at all? Because one of my monitors keeps flickering on and off, which is annoying me. But if it's not affecting you, then that's fine.
To develop a suit worthy of the Vanguard war clone. So we're still working to that at the moment.
Great.
Once we've nailed that first Vanguard suit, that's kind of when, the doors have been blown off at that point, and we can then start making more suits, because we do want, we don't want all of the players to be running around in the same suit. The suit that you pick eventually will be leaning into the playstyle that you want. If you want bigger pockets to carry more resources, or you just want to divert all of your suit's energy into your weapons, that's some cool ideas that we're playing around with. But
it would have been video, not audio, but yeah. For example, Classic, if you wanted to be good at PvP, you need to raid. Now each of the Bartle types get their own content progression pipelines. I don't think that those are necessarily related. It's more like, during the development of EVE, during like the 2010-2020 era, you could see that like when they're trying to deal with killers, they made a lot of effort to focus on exploration content, and then of course more recently there's been a lot of support towards achiever content, but part of supporting achievers is also giving achievers a bit of security or safety against killers.
still need to nail the first suit, because I think right now we're still running around in the Intaki suit, and we have been doing that for quite some time, and we really want to move away from that.
You spoke of Jack of all trades, which throws us back to that great CCP Collins catchphrase, the game of games.
Yeah.
So as we're tightening things up, how does Vanguard aspire to be game of games? Are we still going down that road?
Yeah, I think it will be less open than I think we've talked about it previously. It's not going to be like a theme park with lots of different rides. There will be one key ride. I'm strapping myself to this metaphor.
Strap in.
But no, I think at the center of this, we want the sandbox has always been the primary node for us. We're putting a lot of work into that at the moment to kind of tighten that up, add more structure, and remove some of the kind of woolliness that was there, the kind of openness and the lack of structure and lack of tension that existed in that mode. So we're focusing on that at the moment. But having PvE experiences and PvP experiences on the side of that is something we definitely are aiming for. We might not start there as we pull evolve resources and focus onto that core sandbox mode at the moment, but having PvE experiences and PvP experiences, and we've got prototypes that we were playing around with last year that we really liked. We had a PvE kind of dungeon raid, which was really cool. We were playing around with a 3v3 PvP mode that was very similar to like Trials of Osiris in Destiny.
Oh boy, 3v3 game mode. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention. I mentioned the other one, not Concord, but the one I can't think of now, Highguard. Highguard just recently came out, and like it has completely fallen apart now. In fact, the main website for it is gone. Like these just so you guys know, like these games that I mentioned earlier, Concord and Highguard, are both games that have had huge budgets and then collapsed in less than 2 weeks. So this is a big threat to the gaming industry. But one of the biggest problems with Highguard specifically was that, it's these big maps full of really exciting, or like, it's designed around like mounted combat and stuff. So lots of movement tech and stuff like that. And yet they made the game exclusively a 3v3 mode, which made people like totally burned out of it really quickly. Like it was the mode didn't match the map, as it were. That's my understanding of it. So I could definitely see why CCP would look at themselves and be like, uh-oh, that's not great. Because people will just see that and be like, oh, it's another game with a 3v3.
22, and that was really cool. And these are things that we will get back to, but I think off the back of Operation Nemesis and a lot of feedback we got around our core sandbox mode, a lot of negative feedback about it really, and how it wasn't really creating kind of any spikes in gameplay and lack of tension in places, and it was maybe a bit too unstructured, a bit too open, a bit too sandboxy. We're putting some focus on that at the moment, which we're hoping that that will be the core part of the experience for the alpha playtest in summer.
Lovely, thank you. You mentioned the 3v3 there for PvP. Has there been any further thought as to what PvP sizes will be? Are you happy with 3x3 or?
3v3 is a bit more of just a drop-in, drop-out thing. We've got the 9v9, or I think we pushed it to 10v10, or we've been able to, because it's also a technical restriction as well in Unreal 5. Getting the game looking and playing at this frame rate in that engine, the more players you add to that, the more players that need to be replicated on a server, the more problems you get. We can't just press a button and it's 32.
That's another issue that is happening broader in the game industry, which directly affects Vanguard, which is that, like, a lot of games have been coming out with the latest versions of Unreal, and almost all of them have been getting panned for lack of optimization or bad performance. Like, Unreal Engine is a really strong engine, but it's like... So the problem is that, game engine makers are trying to always chase, like, the next thing, when you're developing a game, like, Vanguard isn't going to come out for another year or two. So you can't design for the tech that you had last year when they first started it. They kind of like to design for or develop for the tech that will be out when it is released, right? But the problem with that is that, AI is a thing, and that has completely impacted all computer development and purchasing, right? Like, the price of video cards have gone up by over 15% since November. The price of RAM is is just stunningly expensive at this point. Hard drives are even expensive at this point. Like, everything is exploding because the AI data centers are buying up. You have all of these companies that used to produce this stuff for a commercial market, which are now basically shifting completely over to enterprise market, which is putting a stranglehold on people's ability to have the hardware to run these things. So hardware advancement has been kind of truncated, at least like on the player side, but the Unreal Engine is designed around this idea that tech is going to be advancing. So a lot of games are coming out that are involving Unreal, and they are getting a lot of criticism because of how unperformant they are. And to be fair, Vanguard has had a lot of performance complaints specifically. So Unreal is like Unity. Just because it's an industry standard doesn't make it the people using it know how to develop games optimally. That's true. Although Unreal is, like, out the box a lot more built up than Unity is. And interestingly enough, Arknight Enfield shows off exactly how good Unity can be if someone really does work on it. It's absolutely true that optimization is a big piece of it, but a big part of the fact that Unreal is so weighty is its graphics engine. And so it's like, there's only so much optimization that you can do for it, because it's designed around things like ray tracing, things like, highly performant machines and what they're capable of. So, the idea is that over time, people, my computer's fine, but it's now a 3-year-old computer, and but with people not replacing their computers, the entire industry is kind of lagging behind in capabilities.
Versus 32, or everyone's frame rate drops down really bad. So without making massive change, the more players you add to that, and the more players that need to be replicated on a server, the more problems you get. We can't just press a button and it's 32 versus 32, or everyone's frame rate drops down really bad. So without making massive changes to how we do things. So at the center of PvP will probably still be the TDM or control that right now is at 10v10, but we'll continue to see if we can keep pushing that up. But the 3v3 thing might be like, your introduction into PvP, because it's a lot more squad based, it's a lot tighter. But the central, what we were calling the insurgency mode before, that central TDM, team versus team PvP mode is certainly going to be at the heart of PvP when we get to that.
Lovely. So another phrase that popped out from the director's letter was the relation of combined arms between EVE Online and Vanguard. Is it too early to talk about what that means yet?
No, I think it's the spirit of as above, so below, that we've talked about a lot. The spirit of Vanguard is there is one universe, there is one war, And the war that's being fought in the capital spaceships is also being fought on the ground. And that's what we kind of mean by combined arms. We don't necessarily mean it in the same way that, say, Battlefield uses it, which is like combined arms is people driving around in tanks and flying in planes. We're not looking to do that right now. It's the combined arms in that the battles that are being fought on the ground in Vanguard are contributing a part of the same warfare that's being fought in space. And that's a big part of what we mean by that combined arms spirit, that you're not, you feel tethered to the larger theatre of war that's happening in the universe.
So, having done this for a couple of years now, if you could go back, if you could time travel and go, Great Scott, young Collins, I would do this differently. What would you do differently to take us up to this point?
Oh wow, like it's hard, like a specific feature or something. I think I really enjoyed our approach to pre-alpha, in that we were very experimental. We had a lot of prototypes in the game. I was really surprised by the positive reaction from players being able to just take a prototype. It's something that gets called out all the time when we talk about this game, is that you think that sounds really risky, making something out of paper mache and then giving it to people and going, is this fun? You often expect, gamers, TM, to want the finished, polished article before they give useful feedback on it. But giving something that was clearly untextured, clearly wasn't ready, to people, and then getting feedback on it. I think the time we've spent in pre-alpha, though, I would probably shorten it down. Okay. Maybe force ourselves to make more committed decisions earlier on, and get to where we are now much earlier. I think I'd like that, and I think a lot of people would probably have said that they would like that as well, especially from the player's perspective. Being able to get to a polished, more finished version of the game earlier is certainly what people would have wanted. But I don't want to discount how great that period was for us, I think. But from announcing in 2023, I'd love to be in I'd love to be in early access already, and I'm sure a lot of people would like us to be.
If we take this in a different direction, can we go back to Bastions?
I'm going to pause this real quick, and this is why I love the Stormbringer. It's not necessarily the most efficient thing. You could it's not. You can definitely do this in a bunch of other ships. In fact, that Vexor that the Aura keeps suggesting, the reason why they do is because it's really good for high-sec exploration. We do the Stormbringer because I love to see everything blow up all at once. I call it the giggle factor. And so we're going to see a lot of that today, hopefully.
Yeah.
Where are we with Bastions?
Yeah, the spirit of the Bastion, especially, and definitely the narrative of the Bastion, and the Vanguard high table that exists in the first Bastion, Avalon, is certainly at the heart of the narrative that we want to tell. Functionally around the Bastion, I think that we're going to take baby steps towards, what we presented at FanFest last year, this idea of lots of bastions all throughout the universe with lots of different planets and stuff like that. I think that's eventually what we want to get to, especially player-owned bastions. That's like the North Star for us, is people being able to create their own communities in the space, and gather people there and do their own missions and even fight against each other. That is like the North Star for us. But I think we're going to be taking baby steps there. A lot of the things that we still want to do is we don't want Vanguard to just feel like it's a multiplayer game with single player progression. A lot of games are doing that at the moment, and I think it works for a lot of people. But for an EVE game, the progression is multiplayer. It's the idea that you're working together as a community, working together as a player base, or fighting against each other as a player base. And the progression markers aren't just for you and you alone. They are felt, across the universe with other players. So had the Bastions idea, and that these hubs that players congregate in, and that there are progression markers that everyone at that hub is working towards, is still a big part of Bastions. It's just, I think, when we roll out, we will still only have the one Bastion, and then we'll be adding more over time as we move forwards. But the narrative...
No, yeah, the whole point of the Bastions is that they're supposed to be a thing that exists in both universes, right? Like, it'll have a location in EVE, and then will radiate effects out from there. That's what they've suggested in the past, at least. Now, obviously, like, the NPC Bastions are going to be potentially a little bit different, but we'll have to see how it all plays out.
Of the Bastion, and why the Vanguard have sought a safe haven, and what their leadership hope to achieve from that position, and that has been had a lot of work on it, and it's really exciting to see how that's weaving into part of the EVE Online narrative that's coming forward over the next year as well.
Yeah, very cool. How has the team improved the existing experience for Q3, Q4? What changes are you going to make going into that?
Oh, a huge amount. I think that's the big thing going into Alpha, is taking what we had at Operation Nemesis and seeing some of the things that just weren't quite there yet. We had we've been talking a lot about this internally. Operation Nemesis, we had a large spread of things that were all at about 40-50% done, and we want to have a tighter collection of things that are feeling much closer to 100%. So things like gunplay and enemies, and the sandbox itself, and even the maps. the maps that you're going down to and how they're designed and the different points of interest and what kind of challenges they have waiting for you there and how exploration works and how loot works. Like all of these things were a little bit undercooked in places in the game. So getting a lot of that really useful feedback off the back of Operation Nemesis that helped validate some of our internal thinkings about how certain things weren't really feeling like they were clicking together, that helped kind of us realize what the next step of those were. So Alpha is going to be, it's going to be the best looking and best playing version of Vanguard.
So talking about the stuff that's come before, the changes that you're making, like what has the team identified as like a core experience of Vanguard that's going to be built on?
Yeah, I think the sandbox is at the heart of that.
Wait, can I really not get further into this dungeon because I don't have a gold tag already? Because I doubt that it's going to be in one of these turrets. I got a platinum tag from that guy. Am I missing something? I'm sorry, I got distracted by what's happening in the game. I'm in the Blood Vigil. Does a Blood Vigil require me to bring a tag with me to do it? That's disappointing. Stargate? Huh.
Being able to, we hadn't really worked on the sandbox quite a lot last year because we were focusing on, the onboarding and those, the first time user experience, or the Fatui as you'd call it, those opening levels and the kind of the expedition structure that allows and guides players through that. That was great stuff for us to do, and we really needed it. We needed some structured objectives. We needed onboarding for people who were fresh into the game, but it meant that kind of the mode itself was not really getting iterated on so much. So going back to that and working through that and kind of tightening it up and identifying where that mode was falling short in areas. We got a lot of feedback that the kind of stakes weren't really there. There wasn't really a huge amount of objective to it. There were you kind of deploying down,
that's why.
And you either had an objective that you were taking on from an expedition or not. But I think adding a bit more structure to the mode, adding a bit more sense of place, that where you go to and why you are going to those places, instead of just kind of wandering around and trying to find loot, you are specifically going to these types of places that are demarcated on the map for you. You're going over there to get the industrial supplies, or you're going to go over there, you're going to go to the military camp because that's probably going to fight where you're going to find some weapon stuff. And the stuff that you do there and the tension that is created, that is the stuff that we're really honing on, is trying to create something that still feels suspenseful, engaging, and is a bit more structured in terms of identifying the objectives in front of you as to what you could and should be doing.
Wicked.
Yeah.
So obviously a fair few players have been with us right from the start. And one of the questions that keeps getting brought up is what we're going to do to improve player interaction whilst playing.
Yeah, well, when we added prop chat, that was massive for us, but we're not satisfied. We want to go further in terms of allowing players to collaborate or, BM each other in the world space. So maybe not for alpha, but certainly as we work towards early access, is allowing players to potentially emergently squad up on the surface. This is something we still really want to explore. We had an internal prototype even early last year that we didn't really take any further, that allowed players to meet up in the field and join each other's squads. At the time, we couldn't really reconcile, because as a squad leader you've selected a contract, and if two players have two different contracts, what does that mean if they now join a squad? But we're confident that we can move forwards in a way that allows us to add that emergent squadding. Finding someone in the field and going, look, let's just work together, is something that we really want to do, and build a system around, rather than them just kind of soft working together. But also knowing that prop chat isn't the be all and end all of communication in player to player. Adding something like it's a bit loaded, but an emote wheel. We're obviously not going to add like dabbing or maybe, I don't know, maybe we add dabbing, but no, it's not like Fortnite like dabbing and flossing or anything like that. But I quite like how it works in Arc Raiders. The wheel that says, hey, don't shoot, or hey, I come in peace, and stuff like that, is a really good way of just communicating to players without having to rely on prop chat to basically communicate your intent to another player. Because I think that's the thing that's going to be happening, is two players squaring off and going, right, what is their intent? How do I communicate my intent? So building more systems around that is certainly what we want to do to improve player-to-player interactions.
Thank you very much. That is a lot of information, which I will enjoy editing.
Hey, nice.
You have another meeting to run to, as do I, a different meeting, a better meeting.
Oh.
All right, so that was the Vanguard video. A good amount of information in there, I guess. I mean, obviously not anything too solid, but it does give us kind of a better idea of where they're going. I find it fun that they said, like, oh yeah, the prototypes have been like my favorite part, but also we're not going to be doing it anymore. We'll see how that works out. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about what's happening with Vanguard. we are definitely going to be following the Bastion stuff. I would love to know where Avalon is, for example. But yeah, so this is definitely going to be something to pay attention to. Although, admittedly, this is definitely like a couple steps down the road. We've still got the election to do, and then we've got FanFest, and then we've got the other thing, the expansion with military campaigns and all that stuff. So we'll learn more about all this as time goes on. But that is it for this video. Let's hop into the Oz one. So once again, like, make sure to please go watch the Oz video if you like it, or if you haven't already. He deserves your views, but we're going to be watching this because he has CCP Okami on. What is happening? Hold on. Something just repped them all. I think I'm doing something wrong. It probably says something, right? What is repping them all? Let me look. What is happening? This is so weird. This is not a dungeon that I've ever done before. Oh, I have to kill the force fields? Can I kill the force fields? I killed the manager. He's dead. These sites are very interesting, actually. I haven't really played around as much as I probably should have, at least not for a long time. Although this is definitely not a very good one for the Stormbringer. Lots of single targets. Oh well.
Oh, okay. Oh, sure. It's a competition now. Yeah.
No, we're going to hop into the MER one now.
How y'all doing? Good Saturday evening to the EVE community. Hello, CCP Okami. Thank you, and welcome back to the stream. Good to have you, man.
Yeah, man.
So they are covering the MER, which we covered too. Is this? So that's not it either. Blood Raider, Battle Station. Oh no, it did kill it. Okay, good. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be doing, but we're going to work it out while we watch the... So they're covering the MER as kind of... That's the framing device of this conversation. But obviously, we're interested in a lot of the clues that CCP Okami has to say about the future. You know, this is kind of a... if you haven't watched the dev chat first and the analysis, that's going to be really important piece to all of this. Consider this like the sequel to that, as Oz is jumping into these topics with Okami.
Man, good to be here.
I'm gonna take the hype music out because we're gonna be chatting. We're gonna be chatting today about the MER a little bit. I think I'm forcing you a little bit into the MER, but then I also want to talk about game design today, which you carry in your title. Before we jump into the discussion, Okami, you are a game design director for EVE Online. Can you, for those that don't know you or what you do, can you explain what it is that you do at CCP?
Sure, yeah. I'm, as Oz said, the game design director, and really I oversee the department of game design. So there's probably about 15 game designers on EVE Online that are spread out across all of the teams, and really our job is to make sure that you guys are having fun. Like, at the essence of it, it's a hard, weird thing, but we come up with new features, we do like game economy balancing, we design new ships, what their stats are, we look for iterating on gameplay, do we add damage over time effects to EVE, that kind of stuff. And so I'm overseeing that department. I'm making sure all those guys are doing their best work and focusing, and really, yeah, that's what I do. And then also I kind of help figure out, what do we do next? What are the big problems and challenges in EVE, and what should we focus on next?
What? No. What? No. What? Stop.
Nice. That's a long list of things to do, and not easy, might I say. To make us having fun is always difficult, because we like to complain about a lot of things. What the community hasn't complained a lot about is you. So in the last year, I think you've had,
that's absolutely true,
probably the best year of any dev. If I listen, you won Dev of the Year at in the Declarations of War podcast. I know that. Does
I'm
it
really
feel
grateful for that?
Does it feel good? Like, have you like arrived in reality, and is the honeymoon over?
It of course it feels good. Like, I think I'm a gamer. I've played games my whole life, and so being able to just kind of bring good game to people feels good, I think. And I'm really glad to be a part of that. It's not just me. Like there's again a whole department and team behind me. I tend to just face tank and be the one that puts myself out there. So yeah, it feels good. I just want to stay humble and hope one day the terrible fall doesn't happen.
Well, it hasn't yet. I think what coincided a little bit with your arrival was also CCP Monty doing a lot of new formats for the community, the nerds podcast or the dev blogs, the dev blog videos that you do with Berger and Rattati. That's I think fantastic for the community, because we get to hear nowadays a lot more than we used to from EVE Online. Is that something that you're doing now by design? Is that something that that Rattati is pushing? Is that coming from Monty, or is that did you collectively decide let's communicate more with the community?
I think really it kind of harkened back to about a year ago when the whole mining stuff began.
I'm almost certainly losing money right now doing the Stormbringer. We're going to have to see how much money we make this whole time. Obviously, there's more efficient ways of doing this. This is mostly just background while we watch the stream, and we'll see what happens. But just to be advised, like, the Stormbringer is a very expensive ship, and then also its ammo. This 6,000 rounds of ammo is 75 million ISK. So keep that in mind, that the big problem with the Stormbringer is that its ammo is extremely expensive to maintain. But I do this for you guys, like the stream.
And I kind of just, in my position, decided like I can say things. I can say whatever I want. I want to have a dialogue with the community, and so kind of kicked that door open. And I think there's lots of reasons maybe why it didn't happen, but I was the new guy, so I said let's try. And it's been working. And so yeah, Monty's been really great and supportive. There's no real like program or agenda. Like every once in a while people just poke me like, hey, do you want to come talk and say things? I try about once every month or two just to get in and make sure I'm talking about relevant topics. CSM is a big part of that, so I was usually just ask like, hey, what are people talking about? What are people wondering about? And then I'll pop on and be like, hey, I want to do like a tea time. We just kind of came up with that because I tend to just say what I think is important to say and not really worry about the timing of it, or am I spoiling an expansion or something like that.
Yeah, I love the format. Really, really cool. Man. Yeah, for those of you that don't know, the CSM was actually in Iceland. So I saw Okami in the flesh a couple of weeks ago, and we spent 5 days locked up in a room. At least we were locked up in a room, and the devs came and went. But Okami certainly spent many hours without us in that room. What was your impression of the CSM summit, Okami? It was your second,
yeah.
Right?
Second summit. That's right. Third term of CSM now. Yeah, it was really good. I think like I'm seeing a lot of maturity from the group. I'm seeing people really coming together to try to focus, like really to solve problems and challenges in EVE without any sort of motive or agenda other than like we all want this game to exist and thrive for a long time. And everyone is super easy to talk to, and there's a ton of creativity and just good ideas going back and forth. So I'm really looking forward to this year.
Yeah, me too. I have to agree. It was a fantastic week. It's more work than you think going into it, because you're very excited in the beginning, and then you realize, okay, this is going to be a lot of topics for 5 days. It's going to be a lot of meetings, and we try to address everything, but even in that week we don't get to address, I think, every single topic that we want to talk about.
Absolutely.
Even this past week, I was going back through the notes from the summit and everything. I was thought, why didn't we talk about this or the other? And overall, the fact that CCP does something like this, that affords.
Just so you guys know, so basically every year, the player base elects a council or stellar management. So players are allowed to run for political office, as it were, and there's a vote, and we get to pick 10 people, and then CCP picks 2 people to be part of the council of stellar management, and they get put under NDA. And so they get exposed to information that isn't necessarily public information, early information and stuff, to give CCP feedback, and help make the game better. So that's what they're talking about there. And of course, Oz is a member of the CSM at the moment, and I think he just got elected again most recently. So obviously. So he's been working really hard with CCP this whole time for at least a couple of years now.
Itself, something like the CSM is just really cool for the community, but probably also very cool for CCP, because you have a really, really good player focus group and advocacy group there helping you along.
Yeah, it's been fantastic.
Before we jump into MER, I want to congratulate you on one thing that I don't even know how big a role this plays, but you know that I'm a finance guy in game and out of game. And so I always follow the earnings reports from Pearl Abyss, and the latest numbers came out a couple of days ago, and EVE Online as an IP had the 9th consecutive year-over-year growth quarter, which is...
This is a huge deal. This is actually a big deal because, like, you know, everybody's always talking about, you know, EVE is dying, you know, blah, blah, blah. They're making these mistakes, yada, yada, yada. But, like, ever since Pearl Abyss, well, now that Pearl Abyss has purchased, you know, EVE Online, or CCP rather, you know, Pearl Abyss is a publicly traded company, so they have to give these reports. And one of the things that we found is that, like, EVE Online is not only doing well, but it's actually kind of been one of their stronger, not overall, because Black Desert Online is, I think, a bigger overall, but like as far as just growth goes, Black Desert Online has struggled, and EVE Online has actually been kind of their champion for the last few years. So, you know, just keep that in mind when everybody's doom saying EVE Online. By the numbers, it's doing quite well.
For a 23-year-old game, absolutely incredible. Is that something that gets talked about in the CCP offices, or is that, you know, is that kind of like the editorial team in a newspaper that doesn't want to know about advertising?
No, we definitely talk about it, and we celebrate when we have our wins, for sure. It's, you know, it's challenging because we're always like expansion, next expansion, next expansion. So we're like so focused. It's like we're on this marathon, but we do make sure to kind of pull over and be like, hey guys, hey.
Well, there is a lot of reasons why that is. You know, obviously the Chinese players also had Serenity for a while, but like I think that having them be on Tranquility more has definitely helped things. There's a lot of little things that have made it, you know, be this successful. But I mean, like when players talk about like the decisions that CCP is making or blah blah blah, like you got to remember that by the numbers, it's doing well. So, you know, keep that in mind when you're giving your feedback.
We did something good. It's what we're doing is working, and congratulations. So yeah, it feels great. And I think for me, it's just a, you know, an indication of how healthy the game is, how vibrant, and how much, you know, longer it can live for us as well.
Oh no. Is this really going to be a thing? Is this going to be a thing that keeps happening? Do I have a...
The monetization team is doing.
Do I have an ad blocker? No, I'm going to need to get
also,
one.
Absolutely.
You know, you need active players, but we've seen a lot of things, I think, change and tried in the monetization team over the last few years, and it seems to be, you know, it seems to be working. At least the bottom line says it's working really well, and you know, it's a good foundation for the game to continue to exist and to grow going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. You got it, man. Those guys are working hard.
Yeah. I get to talk to them a lot because I have a lot of opinions on that sort of stuff. So my time on the CSM is you know, already going into the third term, or no, in the middle of the third term, I've gotten to know the monetization team really well, and I think it's going in a good direction.
Yeah.
All right. My favorite stream of the month every month is the monthly economic report, and I think, you know, this is the second time that you're joining me for a discussion on the MER.
My problem with the player online numbers is that there's a lot more multi-boxing going on as well, but at least things are blowing up more. Is there more? Has there been a rise of multiplayer boxing again? I know that, like, you know, one of the biggest drop-offs that happened when it came to things like scarcity was a lot of people stopped multi-boxing. You know, I remember back then a lot of people were like, I'm so mad, I'm going to cancel 22 of my 25 accounts or whatever. And it's like, okay, well, see ya. I do think that multi-boxing is a net negative to the game overall, at least widespread multi-boxing. But they've also said that a lot of the people that were lost, a lot of the multi-boxing accounts that was lost back then have been were regained in the form of actual players. I know, you know, they have made offers to make multi-boxing or multi-accounts easier to do, but has multi-boxing increased in being a problem again? They are in specific areas like faction warfare, for example. But I can't imagine it's as widespread as it was in, like, say, 2018, right? They stopped mining multi-boxing and started Ishtar multi-boxing, and of course, after faction warfare updates. Yeah, but, like, again, there's some of that, but compared to back in 2018 and well, basically 2015 to 2020, I feel like I hear about that a lot less. And a big piece of that is the fact that, you know, skill farming has become a much worse of an option. You know, when skill injectors or skill extractors were brought into the game, it became one of those things where instead of having to figure out how to fund all of my accounts, you know, if I want to get an extra account, I need to be able to justify the additional cost of that extra account. With skill farming, it made it so that it was actually just literally profitable to have extra accounts, and that really changed the way that people thought about multi-boxing. They've done a lot to strike against that, to make it so it's less profitable or not profitable to do skill farming, but it still allows you to basically it allows you to kind of what's it called, supplement. It helps pay for your account. It pays for a big chunk of your account at the very least. So multi-boxing is still very viable, but it's not the default. Yeah, I don't know. That said, like, I don't know. The other piece of that was a lot of people liked it when a lot of people were ratting multi-boxing in space back in 2018 because it gave people things to catch in nullsec, although Ishtars aren't really that juicy overall. So it's something to think about or talk about more. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think about the current state of multi-boxing in EVE.
It's, you know, it's also very unique that a game has something like a monthly economic report. I don't know. Like when you joined the game, was that something that you already knew, or did you kind of stumble onto EVE and then said, oh, holy crap, they have an MER?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was. I've been in EVE in and out for many years, since like 2005. And when I started, definitely, I don't remember seeing anything like this. And then I came back like a year or so before I joined the team. And yeah, it's pretty phenomenal. It's both like phenomenal and scary. Sometimes I'm like, wow, you showed that?
That's CCP Quant's baby, right? Like back in the day, they hired CCP Quant, and he created the tools that would eventually become the MER. And that was picked up by CCP Larrikin when CCP Quant left. I assume CCP Larrikin's still the main guy that does... Oh, Shadow Serpentis! Yay, rare drop. Let's see if I get anything good. But yeah, it is really cool that they do the MER. That's true.
Okay.
Yeah. And I always try them to go one level deeper. I always try to say, okay, now break out bot bans, you know? But I understand why team security might not want to do that. And I make
Hey guys, high-sec anoms are awesome. Shadow Serpentis 5MN micro warp drive, 32 million. Yeah, I'll take that. 32 million? We'll take that. Paid for my ammo. Hell yeah. By the way, I'm checking all of the recs with loot because I'm looking for two things. One, I'm looking for the pink warp disruption field generators. Those are worth quite a bit. And then also any potential Skinner materials that might be coming from these sites.
Make people like you nervous on the other side sometimes.
I just said that this site. I just said that this site sucks. This was not an advanced site. I'm in a 0.7 system. That was like one of the lowest tier sites in the game, and yet I just got super lucky. That is twice lucky, by the way. You have to get the rare spawn, and then that rare spawn often will just have crap in it. So the fact that it had something good, I got twice lucky there. No escalation though.
Not that nervous. Tempt me hard enough, and we'll see what I'll show you.
So I'm actually going to hide that chat box
Beginner's luck.
to not hide any of the data, because we need all of the data. This is the slide that I always start with on the MER, right? This shows the overall, I guess, macro values of mining, production, and destruction in EVE Online, and it's looking at this, it's very obvious, or a few trends are very obvious. One is, you know, production has been growing since 2021, essentially. This looks at value, so some of that is also, you know, inflation and deflation within the game, but overall you can say pretty steadily.
I'm going for whatever I run into.
Okay, production is increasing overall. Mining is also increasing, a bit slower, but you can see that certainly, apparently, releasing a mining expansion helps in making people mine more. You know, you could say that.
If you're worried about the actual charts and everything, we covered them all earlier, and you know, I gave my reaction to all of this. But he's absolutely right. Like, production is crazy high right now, and has been for a while. So
that's obvious, but actually, you know, Eve is Eve. So you got to do, sometimes you got to do a lot more than just release the content. So congratulations on at least getting people to mine. That's big. Overall, what's also obvious here, though, is that destruction has been rather steady over time. At least if you look at what the last wars did in like 2021 and 2022, you see the massive amounts of destruction that was going on. So if you're looking at this chart, it's mostly, you got to assume people are building up stockpiles without huge destruction to follow. For you as a game design director, like, is this something that, like, is this an important KPI? Is this something you think about? Is this something you worry about?
Yeah, good questions. I mean, I think all of these indices are exactly that. They're indicators of something, and they all need to kind of be tended to in a healthy place. Sometimes it's easier to maybe focus on one that's more problematic than another. Destruction's probably going to almost always be one of the harder ones to actually like impact, because that's kind of where we want you guys to start taking action, right? So we can dangle carrots, and we can try to come up with new features and speculate that this might drive you to want to fight more. Or there's other factors of like how expensive ships are, and people are scared to take them out and stuff like that. So yeah, it matters. I think at the end of the day, if we focus on it too much, though, it might detract from also just trying to seek like creating just fun and joy in the game, and like trying new things, and like part of why I think the mining expansion was successful is we just took mining and said, let's just make it a bit better. Let's just make mining a bit better, and then people were curious to come try it out. So if we focus so much on like the just the economic part of it, and not the sort of interaction and the core fundamental, like, is this thing cool or fun or interesting, then we're losing sight of kind of the holistic game design.
oh my gosh, at least it's an Eve ad.
For sure, I agree. Like, this, in the end, this is just a number, and it would be much more important if people were having fun, regardless of destruction. I think if you have your ear on the community a lot of people in the Eve community, I think, equate destruction with fun, and rightfully so, because that's what Eve is famous for, and that's what people talk about the most in their memories. But
I mean, destruction with fun. It's definitely, it represents us. It's a very good indicator for activity, right? Like, cause like if you think about it, a lot of players conceptualize PvE as work. It's the thing that you have to do to make money. Yeah, I'm going in between Serpentis and Blood Raider space, kind of, more or less. So like destruction, like PvP, a lot of people will see, often conceptualize PvE as being like the work that you have to do in order to get the money to do the exciting thing. So I can definitely see where that frame of mind comes from.
I think, you know, taking it away from just the number, if we're talking about, you know, we often talk about conflict drivers, I think, on the CSM and you know, in your dev blogs. Like, what's your thought now, having spent, you know, a couple of years with EVE Online, what's your thought of the current state of conflict drivers in EVE? Is that something that, like, you think needs a lot of work? Is it in a good place? What's your current thought?
Yeah, I think there's something that need constant tending, like the current set of conflict drivers. I'm not sure they all landed as exactly we'd hope. So Metanox, Skyhooks, things like that. You know, they work.
Oh yeah, obviously on this channel we think that PvE gameplay is absolutely valid. I'm just saying, like, I can definitely, like, a lot of players conceptualize that, especially when they talk about, you know, when you listen to like Nullsec complain about changes to ratting or whatever, like they often, it gets framed as the ISK earning mechanisms are the cost that you have to do, but what they really want to just do is have their ships and go fight each other with it, right? So yeah, it's a popular position is what I'm saying.
There's some core elements that are good, and to me it's always a balance between, like, do we come back to those things, and how much energy should we put into each of those elements versus like maybe something new like phased fields that might end up being a bigger conflict driver, or somewhat of a conflict driver at least. And so yeah, I think they're okay. I think that they need some tending, and some are doing better than others. Maybe like ESS and stuff is in an okay place, but yeah, I'd love to make some space to come back to the few that we've released over the last year
ESS is in a good place. Okay, good to know.
or two.
If I may leave the MER for 1 second, you recently released this dev blog here with Ratati and Berger, and in there you talk about the roadmap for the next 3 expansions, right? And you talk about
Escalation. Hell yeah. Where is it at? Where is it at? Where are we going? Where are we going? Are we going? Where are we going? Hold on. Open up the agency, encounters. Is it? No, it's exploration. Escalation. Boo. Wait, I've got 2? Oh, I got a narcotics warehouse. Hell yeah. That's 9 jumps away, though. Okay, hold on. We're going to finish up these 2 other systems. Or these 4 other systems, I should say. Or 5? We're going to go here, then here, then here. Wait, no. Then here. Then here. Then here. There. I want to go through 0.5 systems. As an explorer, you definitely want to go through 0.5 systems because that's where that's where dens and stuff are more likely to happen, which are the better sites. So that's what we're going to do.
a lot about the military campaigns and theater of war, I think it's called, right? Is that like, do you see that driving that in itself, that concept driving a lot of conflict in EVE Online?
I think it has the potential to. It's going to end up being a pretty robust tool set for us to create goals for everybody that have like real meaningful stakes in the universe. And you know, with those stakes, like potential changes, new stations, changed networks.
Okay, hold on. This is the part that's got everybody excited, right? So let's listen to this again. Hold on.
Robust tool set for us to.
About the military campaigns and theater of war, I think it's called, right? Is that like, do you see that driving that in itself, that concept driving a lot of conflict in EVE Online?
I think it has the potential to. It's going to end up being a pretty robust tool set for us to create goals for everybody that have like real meaningful stakes in the universe. And you know, with those stakes, like potential changes, new stations, changed networks, new jump bridges, changed taxes, etc. I think the like desire to.
Okay, so what do we got there? We got new stations, which makes sense. This has already happened before. You know, when Uprising happened, all of the main headquarters got a new structure, the anchorage that has all of the services inside of them. So, you know, new stations is a big one. Taking away stations would be a much bigger thing. Jump bridges is a weird one. I think he may be just talking about Stargates there. What's interesting is this plays into two things that I've kind of suggested for years that I'd really love to see happen. One, you know, I've said a long time ago that I'd really like to see like pirate standings be more meaningful. So like, for instance, if you got really high standings with different, with like the Guristas, for example, then you would get able to access their jump bridge network, which is like, or their smuggler network. So like basically a bunch, sort of like wormholes in the fact that there's a bunch of random connections every day, but you can see them if you have access to them and other people can't. That could be pretty cool. I don't know if that's what he's talking about. I'm probably not what he's talking about here, but the other piece to this feels very much like what I've talked about for years, right? So this idea of military campaigns is obviously like, I've been suggesting a thing like military campaigns, in fact, calling it military campaigns for half a decade to a decade now. You know, this idea of like short-lived like reasons to join faction warfare right now to participate in a big thing, right? With a beginning, middle, and end. Like that matches kind of what they've been talking about. I even called it military campaigns. But the other thing that I talked about a while ago was like, I mean, like before Uprising, was this idea. I've always been an advocate for the state of faction warfare impacting the tax rate in that empire, right? Because so like, for instance, because so before Uprising, the winning team, the team that had the most points, the most coverage, et cetera, had more reward, and the losing team had less reward. And this was always kind of contentious because it kind of it enables snowballing. Now, in the end, it didn't end up being as much of a nightmare as some people would suggest, because like the amount of effort it took to keep a high tier versus inspired to take back the Warzone meant that the Warzone did oscillate back at least some. But the idea is that we should actually offer more reward to the losing team than the winning team, because if you think about it, the empire that's on the back foot will be more incentivized to offer additional rewards to get people to come and join to advance their agenda. But with that would also come increased taxes, right? That money has to come from somewhere. So if Galente's losing versus Caldari, then maybe the taxes in Galente space will be higher than in Caldari space to pay for the war effort of the Galente, right? And the reason why I've always asked for this is because as a person who spent years and years in faction warfare, the one thing I always wanted was for, like, EVE is about how everything kind of interconnects and impacts each other. And so the idea that faction warfare was completely separate always sort of frustrated me. And so I've always wanted there to be a reason why somebody who isn't in faction warfare may in fact still care about faction warfare, right? So like maybe some big trader, if the Caldari start losing, then the traders who want Jita to have lower taxes may start funding the Caldari militia themselves, not even necessarily participating, but they have a vested interest in one side winning or another, even if they're not in faction warfare themselves. That is something that I've always advocated for, and I think would be a really good thing. And dare I say, that sounds pretty close to what they're talking, or that at least fits in the space of what he's suggesting there.
To pursue and effectively vote through action could create conflict, and in the way that we're trying to set those goals, we're going to leave ourselves open to be able to make conflict drivers a part of that as well. So I don't think inherently it's going to be the conflict driver, but I think we're going to have a set of tools that we can use to experiment and try to promote conflict in interesting ways.
Yeah, war bonds, sure. Oh my god, stop.
Can you, for those that are new to the concept of the military campaigns, can you sum up what
so everybody
what it is and what what the design thought is behind the military campaigns?
Yeah, I'll do my best here. I actually don't remember what we said, but screw it. Like campaigns really are, and military campaigns are a way for us to have sort of our in-game entities like empires manifest their goals and objectives in a more sort of like opaque way that players can participate in. So they'll present everybody with a set of goals every expansion, and by achieving those goals and helping the empires that you decide to ally with, there'll be tangible and real outcomes and impacts in the following expansions. As I mentioned, like building new gates to different systems, changing gates, destroying structures or building new structures, and it's also a narrative tool. Like it's a way for us to continue to surface like the drama between the empires. And
guys, they said destroying gates, guys. They said destroying gates, guys. They said destroying gates, guys. No, I think that a lot of this has to do with, like, we can look at previous things as examples. So the one I think would be the most solid example of what this would entail, because he's saying like, okay, so there's going to be a campaign, and the campaign is going to have objectives, and that means that any given objective can either be succeeded or failed, right? And then the results of that campaign might be reflected. It may take until the next expansion to be able to fully reflect those changes, but this is kind of what will set the stages. So that means attacking factional warfare transport ships, supplying gates. Oh gosh, yeah. So a good example of this is actually the Othanoon gates, right? Where this isn't destroying a gate, but this is creating a gate. So there was a campaign a few years back where both the Galente and the Caldari attempted to build stargates to Othanoon, which is deep into faction warfare low sec, and the idea is that like you had to mine special rocks that were within that specific constellation in Losec, and then bring it to these turn-in points in Othanoon, and during that event, the Caldari managed to succeed in building their Stargate, and the Gallente failed. So nowadays, the Caldari have a Stargate directly from, is it Samanuni? I think it's not Samanuni. It's next to Samanuni. I can't remember exactly what system it is. But that leads directly to Othanoon. Now, they actually originally made it so that Stargate was only on when it... Yeah, it was Sammy? Okay. That gate was only on when the Caldari owned the system. When the Gallente owned the system, that gate would shut off. Unfortunately, just due to the way that the game is built, that ended up being very difficult. Hey, a 4 of 10. We'll see how this goes. That ended up being like a very technical thing, especially, or like a technically difficult thing, especially when it comes to like autopilots and, stuff like that. And so they ended up getting rid of the dynamic nature of it. So now it's just on all the time. But that is true that like Caldari now have a Stargate to that system and the Gallente do not, because of the fact that the Caldari militia guys, well, actually not even militia guys, but like people supported the Caldari, and they managed to also prevent the Gallente from succeeding. And then ultimately the gate that the Gallente were building, the other side of the gate, got redirected, and that's how they took over Intaki, or at least they built the Stargate in Intaki and secured it from there. So, that is a great example of like, okay, well, there's a goal, and then based on that goal, they were able to do or not do a thing. And so I think that that's probably a really good example of where it would be. And then likewise, well, if you can create a gate, maybe you can destroy a gate. So you can see like they've been doing, that's just one example, but there's lots of little examples over the last couple of years where they've done things like this. And, in the past, they have been kind of held back by some of their technical limitations, which could explain, like, I like to think that, like, when it comes to the major development features, from the moment that it gets conceptualized to when it can be done, usually takes about 2 years. It's a little bit longer than that, obviously, in this case. I think it's been 3 or 4 years, but it makes sense that, like, okay, well, they ran into problems with the Othanoon Stargate system and a few of the other, like, things that they did. So, okay, well, it was cool. They did those manually, more or less. So how do we create a system that better supports what we want to do, right? The process is now proven out. Now let's, make it into a regular thing. And that's what military campaigns are. So we can look at things like the Othanoon Stargate, Tabitzer, Turner, these major major and minor changes to the universe based on player activity or player actions versus player non-action. Like even Turner, obviously we couldn't affect whether or not the Turner star blew up per se, but it's very likely that the other two when the Amar put up their 3 stellar transmuters, the Mimitar managed to secure 2 of them, and those were the 2 that didn't blow up. So we still do not know what would have happened if the Mimitar had failed to take back those systems, but it does feel at least a little bit like what was happening in the war zone directly impacted what ultimately happened to Turner. So, I think that if we look at this, we can find many, many examples in the last few years where the ideas that they're talking about here have been being played out, but they've been having to do it more or less manually and individually, and have been kind of held back by some of the limitations that they still had. They built like the weather system so they can make some modifications like Turner. And this is, a whole new suite of technical tools that they have to make this possible. So very, very exciting stuff.
Allow you to sort of participate in that. So that's kind of it at a high level.
Was part of this design concept also looking at the PvE side of EVE? Because I know that's something that I had in my presentation for the CSM, and I've been, I don't want to say pushing it, but mentioning it at many sides, that I think there are large parts of PvE in EVE Online that haven't changed in 20 years, and then there are some new PvE elements. I say new; they're already like abyssal spaces.
Yeah, we never found out where Gandalf went. It seems like CCP, man, they really did set it up that the Turner survivors should have been rescued by the Triglavians or something. There's a lot of little hints, especially with the masks. I've covered this before, but CCP, that's one of those things that it felt like they had an idea, but then they shifted, because that is one of the problems, is that it being an agile development studio, oftentimes things like just change on a development side that might put out their plans or change their plans. A good example of that would be, I remember CCP Fozzie once came on stage and was like, hey, we're going to come out with these new pirate implants in the next month or so. And then it didn't happen. It happened, but it was like a year later. But CCP Fozzie even admitted to the fact that literally when he got home from EVE Down Under, which is where he made that announcement, as soon as he got back to Iceland, they were like, hey, by the way, we're changing things and you're moving to this other team. So he wasn't able to implement it, right? That's one of the issues with an agile development studio, is that's really hard or sometimes challenging to create long-term strings of things, because even though you do make long-term plans, agile development means that it could change at any time. Well, at least every 2 weeks or whatever. So my point is, I think that that's still a thread that they could pick up, but the last I heard from CCP was that more or less the ashes of the Turner survivors are probably dead, but I still hold up hope.
It's 5 years old now, I think, but newish. That is, really fun and engaging, I think. Is wanting to redesign PvE a part of these military campaigns?
Yeah, I think you mentioned PvE a lot at the summit, which I appreciate. I think there's it's a much bigger part of EVE than lots of people.
Hold on. Limited information is available on the inner sanctum of the Muzata monasteries, and most of what is now known is based on unreliable information from members in the order that have been captured in DED raids on Blood Raider strongholds. According to these cultists, Muzata engage in gruesome genetic research using Mimitar slaves legally purchased from the Amar Empire. Mimitar Republic has repeatedly condemned. Okay, nothing new, nothing useful.
People think about
that's a lot of
course,
fucking
people are
missiles.
fighting, but we're not having those epic big battles all the time. You're doing something else often, and often that's PvE. Part of this, the structure of campaigns will allow us to lean into existing PvE content, but absolutely new PvE content and how we use it is absolutely on the track as a part of this too, and some of the future thinking around other things we'd like to do in EVE as well.
Not now. Not now.
Somebody posted in chat that Abyssals came out in 2018. I feel so old.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's still new content for me. Going back to the MER, I'm gonna skip some of the graphs that I usually do, and I won't ask you a question about everything, but there are some things I just need to cover, Okami, as part of the MER, right? There's something going on with mining, and that is the Imperium has really settled in. So we have 6.8 trillion here mined in Innsmother. That is twice what Fountain is doing, and granted, I think Init has never been the strongest. Have never been the strongest miners, but this is quite a big number. Only rivaled by not even Veil of the Silent here, not even Frat at 3.9. And we know Innsmother isn't even the only region the Imperium has. So we'll see that on the moon mining chart later, even more clear. But clearly, the Imperium has settled in and is not only mining but also producing a ton. So here, the production numbers are also
the impact of
very
the
large,
Imperium is huge. We saw that.
Innsmother is the only one, or Innsmother and the Forge are the only ones that are rivaling, or the Veil of the Silent are the only ones that are rivaling the Forge overall. And then we have Radding. Let's see here, the NPC bounties. That's where Fountain shines here at 7 trillion in bounties paid out, and only beat out by Veil of the Silent with 8 trillion. So, yeah, and there's only one place to trade, which is Cheetah. This is...
I need to get ready to leave.
Yes, for now. Burn Jita. I know people always ask me
For now.
bring back
Oof,
Burn
spooky.
Jita. Which even as a trader, people always assume that that I was really against Burn Jita events, whereas as a trader, you're pretty much happy about any interruption there is that makes the market move. So if you can plan around it, if you can profit from it, then throw it at me. Throw it at me. This is the asteroid ore mined over time, and this is
So much damage.
very clearly the Cataclysm impact here in November, and you can see mining going up by 30, 40,
Stabilizing.
50% overall. Would you say
think.
this graph, like based on
Never
this
mind.
graph alone, you would say Cataclysm was a success?
Yeah, Catalyst.
Sorry, yeah,
That's okay.
Cataclysm was another one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
that's
it's
another
already
game.
old.
But yeah, absolutely. Like I it's always speculative on our part. Like we can come up with all these new pieces of content. We can come out with new toys, and then they can come out and people go like, yeah, we don't really want to do that. So seeing this, it does say that people did want to do that, and they're seeing the value and interest in all of that content. So yeah, I'd say it's absolutely a success.
Great. And you mentioned phased fields earlier and prismaticide. I know from personal experience and from what I hear talking on the CSM and with other EVE players that it's
Stabilizing.
it might not have the as big of an effect in terms of bringing Roracles back out on the field as you might have expected, right? I mean, or question: did you expect more Roracles out in fields through prismaticide or through phase fields?
That was tense.
Yeah, I think we always hope to get more out there. It definitely was part of the initial design and thought is how can we get more oracles out there. But at the same time, with where it's at and how it's being used, we're not unhappy with that either.
I don't know how far you get into the actual economics of it, but so prismaticide right now is probably not as. I mean, it's very hard to predict the actual, let's call it exchange rate or alchemy rate of prismaticide before the expansion. Can you talk about, is that something that you would consider tweaking at some point in the future, or do you say no, that's the system and that's how the alchemy is going to work?
Yeah, I mean, as you've seen and everybody, like we're definitely doing a lot more tweaking and balance over time. So roughly every 3 months, where we have a major update, then an expansion, then a major update, then an expansion. And so I'm open to balancing pretty much anything if it's not working on a good timeline. I'd say it's kind of hitting our goals right now. So we're pretty happy with the amount it's being mined, how it's being used in general. We've seen almost like a 50% increase in mining ships being destroyed, largely due to those sites. And yeah, I think people are having fun with it, and there's a lot of value both in low sec and null around them. If a site pops up, it's definitely being done by someone, so people are enjoying the content. So yeah, I mean, we'll come back to it if it's not serving its purpose. I also think like we haven't really gotten into a state where people have needed to use the alchemy strongly for a purpose yet, and so until that happens, it's hard to really prove out whether it's truly working or not.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe I should explain that for those viewers that haven't had experience with prismaticide. So it's essentially a stop or a ceiling, a price ceiling on certain minerals, because prismaticide you can convert. That's why we say alchemy. You can convert the ore into various different minerals at a much worse exchange rate than in other ores.
All that for $1 million ISK. That falls under the category of you win some, you lose some, right? Oof. That's all right. Let's see, how much is this ship? It's less than $1 billion. What am I whining about?
Or refining rate. Sorry, I'm too much of a finance guy. And so right now it might be because mineral prices are relatively cheap right now because supplies are high. There might not be a reason to convert prismaticide at a high rate. But if we hit in any of the minerals a bottleneck or a very, very high price, then it will be very interesting for alliances to have large amounts of prismaticide around to counteract price ceilings and bottlenecks pretty much.
Yep, and we're paying attention to the data overall, looking at how much is being done through reactions versus refining. We're looking at the stockpiles, and it all looks pretty like kind of on the nose for what we hoped for in our balances. So I'd say it's in a healthy state, and yeah, let's see what the future shows.
Yeah, and some people will always just react it for fun to see what happens. I know my EVE players; they're not always economically sensible.
EVE Online is a game about the practical application of bad ideas.
Sometimes
You-
you gotta
just gotta
roll
hit that
those
button.
dice.
Yeah, like mute plasmids. It's just gotta hit that button. All right,
Are you Marsha?
Stop it.
let's quickly go. So ice mining. This is pretty much what the winter Nexus event does to this graph. But that happens every year, and it's nothing surprising. Although I have to say, I'm kind of I told the MER team, Okami, so you don't have to pass this on, but I kind of don't like the fact that event ice is in here. You know what I mean? Because the event ice it doesn't enter the economy. It gets traded in for other rewards. So this is quite stunning. This is
That's true. They should definitely do some Mimitar expansion, ships for expansion names. The Amar and the Glente, because you have Legion, Catalyst. There's actually a couple from back in the day. Wasn't there a Hyperion expansion? I can't remember. A Hurricane expansion could be good.
Moon materials by source, and here you can see that apparently
there
one
was a Rhea.
very large alliance has gotten some moons online, because you see the spike here, and that is pretty crazy on all fronts from R8 to R64 moons. And if we go to the next slide, we can see that Detroit and Innsmother here are, for the first time, I think 1 and 2 in moon material mines.
Yeah, we noticed that too.
And you can also see that the amount of Metanox proliferation here is quite low. So there's a lot of manual moon mining going on, whereas and this might be because this is a new decision, a relatively newly populated zone now, and so the trend seems to be going back towards refineries rather than metanoxes, which it's also a design decision, right, Okami? I mean, you guys have increased the cost for metanoxes several times over the last year, so we've moved away.
I don't think I'm going to be allowed into this other site, but we're going to try it.
Away from very, very high 60, 70, 80% metanox proliferation to...
Oh my gosh. So yeah, that low level site, this is the fun thing about HiSec and a lot of this kind of stuff is that it's all a numbers game, right? You can't get obsessed about any given site, any given thing, right? Because that previous site, that lowest tier, barely there, just 1 or 2 baby rat site gave me 38 million ISK worth of, this Shadow Serpentis thing. Meanwhile, this 4 of 10 that honestly got me spooked out in my Stormbringer, almost died in, gave me a grand total of, with this payout that I just literally received right now, a grand total of 5 million ISK from this site. So yeah, it's
back to more a 50-50 state overall, I would say. So that's by design, right?
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I think we've had a lot of feedback as well about where Metanox is, and as I mentioned before, like I think there are other improvements we could do, but really, like, that's kind of our one major lever we can pull to impact it right now. So that's the one we've been pulling, and it is having an effect over time. So it is by design for the time.
Yeah, and somebody in chat is asking, yes, you get better yields if you manually mine it. You also get different a different set of materials and materials in the end. That's why it does have an economic impact, whether it's metanoxed or not, especially on pyrite, for example, and Exelon, I believe.
Yeah, for our 4 moons, that's correct.
This is my favorite graph always, because it shows us the sinks and faucets, which some people disagree with me, but I feel like is the most important thing about the economy in the game, because this is something that historically EVE has done really well. So we see other MMOs have massive inflation, or at some point you need to shave some zeros off your currency because it's getting ridiculous. But EVE,
nice nice weapon disruption. Too bad it didn't do anything. Man,
EVE has had a fairly good handle on inflation, which is pretty impressive. And the reason is this equation is that you always have a pretty good relationship between ISK, sinks, and faucets. Now in January, it wasn't necessarily fantastic because we did. I need to pull up my other graph here. I think you won't be surprised, CCP Okami, that we have this data in Power BI, of course, to look at so we can analyze it a little better. It's a bit slow to load right now. Here, I'm going to pull this in here. This is our good friend Matthew puts this in Power BI, and what we can see here is a little bit better breakdown of the development of faucets over time. And so one thing that you can see here is that actually faucets have hit a new high in January, and partly this is because we just saw there's a couple of regions that have really ramped up ratting, which is a big source of this. But also, Winter Nexus is also a big faucet every year. It was less this year because fewer Overseer personal effects, but it's still very high, and that's typically
less this year because you made the rewards suck this year, you stingy CCP.
okay if the sinks follow suit. The sinks have gone down a little bit because we had less market transaction, less market velocity going on. That most of that depends on whether there are good black sales going on, because that's where most of the transaction fees get in there. In terms of game design, so like, is this something you look at? Is that just is that somebody else's? I don't know her CCP name, but is that somebody else's problem?
Yeah.
She won't tell me her CCP name.
Her CCP. I call her CCP Imposto, which is like I believe it's Portuguese for taxes. So
okay, all right, very good.
Yeah, I mean that is a game design thing. It touches many people. This is something that something CCP or Tidy cares about a lot as well. Really a healthy, balanced game should care.
I really should be looking up these sites because sometimes like the important loot is in these like secondary caches. I'm not doing that right now because there's just too many things. If you guys know the site and I'm about to miss something, please let me know so that way I don't miss it. That'd be neat.
About this thing, and like you mentioned, Eve has done a fairly good job over time. Now, is this a problem right now? I'm not sure. I don't think. I'm feeling it's not yet. I think there's been enough big changes that we need to see how things play out over a couple more months before we make any other major adjustments. But it's, as you point out, like it's something for us to watch now.
Whoa. What's that? I just want to bet.
You can't control all of it, right? I mean, there's sometimes you just gotta see how the player base reacts, because a lot of times one piece of monetization, be it new packs or a new Eden Store sale, an Omega time sale, that all can have a massive impact on the actual sinks and faucets, mostly the sinks in that example. And so
just killing one swarm at a time.
It's important to keep an eye on it overall. Like if we look at some of these other graphs, which this is faucets over time, and this is where you see the big spikes that are events. So a lot of this. Sometimes the thought is, well, how many events can you afford without causing inflation in the game? I think that's probably the biggest design decision that you have, and I am guessing because we didn't see this big spike here for this is always the Winter Nexus event, and this one before it is the Crimson Harvest event. So last year we still had two massive spikes, and this year that essentially went down to one because the Winter Nexus event was a little bit more, I guess, tuned down, I guess I would say.
Stingy?
Or tuned down. Is that something is that a direct response to the ISK supply in the game, or how are those decisions made?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're looking both at where the ISK supply is currently when we're making our events, and historically what we're getting out of our events, and also how many players we expect that will be playing in the events every year, and we have to make some decisions around that. And of course there's like history and historic, so if you come in expecting a certain thing from the event and that doesn't deliver, that can feel bad too. So it's a careful balance of like, let's bring it down but maybe not too much, and doing some fun game designer math to land at a good place. But yeah, absolutely, it's kind of a factor of all of those things.
I still think we're going to see the money supply graph a little bit later, but we'll see we'll see that we are trending a little bit higher than we were in the last few months, but we'll look at it when we get there. This I just want to quickly tell the viewers. So this is where you see the transaction tax going down. Last year we still had we had a tax cut for the longest time. There was the sales tax was halved for, I don't know, I think 9 months or so. and then it went back to its natural self, and or
I do hope that Okami says more generally useful stuff about the future than what he's already said, right? We haven't watched that wasn't the only important thing out of this stream or video to watch, right? I assume, maybe, please.
Natural self, put it back to around 79% base. And what this does is this is a tax that everyone pays on their market transactions, and that's why you can argue whether it's a very fair or unfair tax, but it's at least one that hits a wide variety of people. And it's actually the most important sink that we have in the game. So, the reason that one reason you would remove a tax cut like this one and put it back in is that you can then afford to run maybe another event, because it's the same thing, whether you...
Yeah, he already talked about that. About how there'll be goals, and then that might manifest in new gates or destroyed gates or whatever, and that would come out in the next expansion. Yeah, we talked about that already. The Dark Blood Alpha is based in the next pocket. Removing its influence will prevent these raids from reaching further. So I need to kill the Dark Blood Alpha. Got it.
Do a tax cut, and everyone pays a little less on every market transaction, or you have once a year a Winter Nexus event where everyone gets showered in ISK for a short while. It's the same concept, and sometimes you have to decide, well, even if it's the same outcome, what is going to have the bigger effect on the player base? And I imagine, that is something that you think about a lot in terms of game design, right, Okami?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think when you're in the Matrix like you are, you're just like, I see Eve.
Yeah.
It's the same thing to you. But both of those things feel different to just a typical player. And I think especially newer players, like the taxes are such an invisible thing. Like they just kind of happen to you, versus getting ISK from bounties from doing events and things.
I don't think it's an escalation. That's no escalation.
Good. So there's definitely an emotional element to it that we have to consider in design as well. And maybe it's a combination of both of those things ultimately that we have to play around with and to tweak during events. But emotions are a large part of, and psychology are a large part of what we have to deal with too. So definitely thinking about how both of those things land to everybody.
I'm really disappointed at the moment because recent patches over the last few days have been adding things in the game, but they ignored repairing what they broke. We still have the missile glitch. Okay, so I'm gonna defend them a little bit here in the fact that like those are two totally different tracks, right? So like the stuff that they're putting in the game now, like the stuff that got patched in last week, for example, and next week, is stuff that they've been working on potentially for months, right? At least sometime. It's in fact like what has come out. By the time the missiles stuff started having problems, those things were already in QA, right? Hey, almost nothing. A crappy EM coding, 1.4 million. A bug is a totally different track. Okay, like when you're doing your development and you're setting things up, like during again going back to kind of agile development a little bit. The way agile development works is like every 2 weeks is a sprint. And so every 2 weeks they decide, okay, well, these are the objectives of these 2 weeks of development. And, it's part of a bigger thing. They've got project managers with quarterly reports and blah, 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 and burn down charts and all these kinds of things. And so like that's your quarter's development. These are what are known as quarterly deliverables, right? That's what the people that are getting paid are basically getting paid for. Bug fixing is often a completely separate track when it comes to like how time and energy by the company is allotted to it. And this isn't just CCP. This is literally like every game or every software development studio, And the other problem with bugs in particular is that like, so if I'm a software developer and you're like, okay, well, we need to add a feature where, you can change the colors of the UI. I know more or less how the UI is built, so I can kind of guess how long it's going to take for me to build that feature. I might say, okay, well, that's going to take me 6 hours of development to do. It might blow up to be as much as 10. When I did development, I don't know if this is exactly the same as CCP, because like our studio is a little bit different, but we had what we called 50-50 and 90-10 estimates. So like I have a 50-50 confidence that it'll take this much time, and I've got a 90% confidence that it'll be done within this amount of time. Now, sometimes it does go over that. Sometimes issues explode. There's a thing that you would that's referred to as oh no, it's not risk. Is it risk? The words are falling out of my head. But the whole point is that, like, unknowns, right? Like maybe I have never played around with the UI functionality, or like because I don't know whether or not the colors I can apply these colors right. There's some unknowns to the development, so I might put some extra padding on the time based on those unknowns, right? So that's kind of like how I'll estimate a feature, right? But a bug is way different, because a bug is a failed assumption. A game works on all these different assumptions, what else is going on, the state of the computer, the graphics drivers, and all these sorts of stuff. So, a bug is things are supposed to work one way. They were designed to work one way. They were built to work that way, but they don't, which means there's something wrong. But like, how do you know what's wrong? If I already knew what was wrong, then it wouldn't be a bug. It would just be fixed. So almost by definition, bugs are huge unknowns. And so like it could very well be like, this thing is very annoying to us, the missile thing, but they may not have a clear understanding of what it is that's causing it to happen. And so it's just some developer is going to have to sit there and just dig through stuff until they figure out what exactly is going wrong. And it's probably something stupid. But those developers also have main projects that actually need to be done otherwise, that need on time, that they are dividing their development efforts between. But also the other crazy part, especially when it comes to graphics and stuff, like as a software developer, you often relying on pieces that are external to your own world, right? Like, I don't know exactly when the missile explosion problem happened. Again, that's the problem. I don't know exactly what's wrong, and they probably don't either. But like, they've been doing a lot of stuff involving the tools, graphic tools that have been introduced by other companies, right? Like I noticed the other day that a lot of the graphic errors that I was having got fixed when I got rid of frame generation, right? You can have upscaling techniques in frame generation. So if it's the frame generation that's causing the problem, CCP may or may not be able to fix it. Right. And that's the other thing, is that some people are having it, some people are not. So what is it? It could have been that like a graphics driver did it, because CCP doesn't like, they did write their own engine, but it's not, they don't control every single step of the way. There are pieces of how things are rendered. Things are like controlled by the computer that are outside of EVE Online. These are graphics driver things. These are things like that. So a lot of times those things are very much black box. If something there changed, then it's just fucked up and they don't know why or how or if it's going to get fixed. And as a game developer, like, okay, well, our developers cost a lot of money to, because software developers aren't cheap. So are we going to commit an entire cycle of a dev or two just to figuring out why this missile is broken, if we suspect that it might just be a driver update going to fix it, right? Maybe it's NVIDIA's fault, not CCP's. So it's a very complicated issue when there is something going wrong. Should they fix it? Absolutely. But like, the thing I'm pushing back here is the idea of like, oh, well, they came out with this feature, they came out with new features while existing bugs already existed. That's just kind of the way it works, because again, some of these features that are coming out this week and next week probably were more or less done before this graphics error happened, or maybe the fix is already in. The fix could already be in for next week, but it's still just processing through QA, right? There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes when it comes to why a certain feature might come out at a certain time or why a bug might get fixed or not fixed. Just throwing it out there. I feel like every time these kinds of things happen, I feel, I was a software developer for many years, so like I guess I get a little bit defensive about that because, yeah, I've had a bug where like literally, like, oh yeah, this bug probably will take me like 5 hours to do, whatever, and I sit down and start working on it. I had a bug once, the worst bug I ever had, took me 45 hours of billable time to identify what was wrong because I had to go through every single strand of how the code works in order to figure out what was going on. And ultimately it was just an if statement, or a method call was passing a true when it should have passed a false. And I looked through that multiple times, but if you just see a thing and it's passing in a thing, you might not even realize, oh, that's the thing that's going wrong. So yeah, it's a bug hunting is the worst. Now, that said, the thing that you can do to help is report it. And not just once, but like, if you get it to work in certain times, if you can figure out when it does happen versus doesn't happen, is it just, is it all missiles? Is it only EM missiles? Is it with frame generation running? Is it, are you using upscaling? What is your graphics card? Now, so all of that, a lot of that stuff gets reported with the bug report anyways, but that means that every single time somebody puts in a bug report, what you're really doing is giving them another clue as to what could be going on. And I'm not joking. Like, people will sit there, like I've sat in rooms with developers and we'll be looking at the stuff and we'll just brainstorm what could possibly be going wrong, because I've checked everything I can think of, but something clearly is still going wrong. What else could possibly be going wrong? And you're one report, I've gotten like 50 reports and everything's just kind of like, okay, well, I've checked all these things. The problem is that oftentimes players don't necessarily know exactly what they were doing at the same time, so their descriptions about what's going on isn't always accurate. But then you get that one thing that like, oh, that's the assumption. This is the difference between it happening versus not happening. And then boom, you get it fixed, right? Because that's the nice thing, is that once you figure it out, it can be pretty quick to fix it, but it's the investigation that takes the most amount of time when it comes to bug reporting or bug hunting. And the best thing that we can do is to report as often as we can when we identify what the problem is. Now, I'm not saying like every single system it's still not, or like every day it's still not fixed or whatever. That's not particularly helpful. But like, anything that might help with understanding what conditions it doesn't happen at, that is huge when it comes to bug hunting. All right, we'll get back to the Okami thing now. I'm off my soapbox.
Yes, sometimes I'm amazed. Like
I do want to say I understand, and it's extremely annoying, and I hate it too. So I'm not saying that you're wrong for being annoyed at it. I'm just saying, like, in this sense, I think that CCP and us are on the same team when it comes to trying to fix it, and we can help by reporting it.
The realism of EVE sometimes hurts CCP as a game design company, because
oh my gosh.
I hear this argument so often. I can't believe we have to pay, taxes. I can't believe there are taxes in a video game. Like how? And the reality is, you go to World of Warcraft, you go to Guild Wars 2, you go to pretty much any other MMO out there. The fees on the auction house or the exchange or whatever, they're much higher. So in Guild Wars 2, you're paying, I don't know, 10-15% on every transaction, and nobody talks about it because nobody expects the world to be that realistic. In EVE, it feels so real that people are like, no, why am I paying taxes? And
yeah,
and that's to me such an it's such an EVE thing that people.
Well, also, like, the relationship in EVE to ISK versus like WoW to Gold is very different, because WoW and other theme park games, they most of the stuff that people are actually going for are going to be soulbound, right? So like, it doesn't matter how much gold you have, you still don't get the best gear unless you can go and do the raids, right? Gold only gets you certain things. And so inflation in things like WoW ends up being less impactful. In Eve, it's critical. Everything can be bought with ISK. The market is one of the major selling points of the game. So, like, it's a lot more serious. Every little penny counts. People don't really care if they lose 10% off their gold, because gold, their gold just continues to go up. And also, like, it's understood that ISK, or rather, where was I going with that? Progress in WoW is permanent, right? So if I buy a cool doodad from the market, like, that's the one time. I just have to save up for it and then I get it, unless it's like a consumable or something. But in Eve, because everything is ephemeral, things get blown up. I don't just have to buy it once. I have to buy it potentially multiple times. So the pressure on the economics in Eve is way higher than World of Warcraft. I have not yet needed to deploy cruise missiles in auto-targeting nor bleeding expensive faction types. Teleport fees are another thing in MMOs, and I could care less about them. Oh yeah, that is a good point. That there has to, like, all these games have sinks for money, right? And in fact, like, that is a big thing. I like, the big complaint in a game like World of Warcraft is often, it's like, oh, there needs to be more gold sinks, right? There needs to be more huge things that allow me to just dump a bunch of gold, because otherwise, like, the gold doesn't mean anything, right? Like, so I remember back in, like, I think it was the Burning Crusade, they introduced, like, the big mount that was like 18,000 or whatever gold. It was like ridiculously expensive, and they've done stuff like that over and over again. But again, like, that game has just a fundamentally different relationship with its currency than EVE Online does. Thank you.
Sometimes they take real life arguments into the game, as they should, but it just feels a little too real. And taxes are a big part of that.
Absolutely. I mean, as I just get a little side tangent here, like, my whole game design career, I was basically taught, don't use taxes. Taxes are bad game design. Like, you shouldn't use them. And here I am on Eve designing taxes, and it's a really interesting place to be in, because taxes feel bad to people. Like, they're sort of like anti-motivational in a way. But, like, they can be done. Like,
whoa, Sentient. Wait,
there might not.
Did I get a second rare spawn already? Holy shit! I've gotten 2 escalations and 2 rare spawns already. I think. Yeah. Holy crap. All right, let's go get it. Let's see what we got. We got a Sentient.
Be another way in Eve to have this level of sync rate, especially in such a player-driven economy, that they have to exist. And it's interesting.
I need to do all my Eve content while streaming. I'm so much luckier on stream than off stream. Holy crap.
To try to design with them when you've kind of had that notion in your mind most of your career, where you're like, tax is bad.
Yeah. I mean, you would have to remove a lot of bounties and ratting revenue if you want to.
Oh, does it? Okay, well, fair enough.
In EVE Online, I think people would hate that too.
Mm-hmm.
All right, getting towards the end of it. This is the money supply graph I was talking about.
Oh, yeah.
So,
and it's crap.
It has been rising again. I think.
Okay. Well,
I was very happy that we had kind of throughout 2025 it leveled off quite significantly. I think we've gotten a little spike now, but then again, I think especially Q4 with Crimson Harvest and Winter Nexus is a special quarter. So I don't expect this to keep rising as rapidly as it has in the last 2 months. And I'm not too concerned. A lot of this also has to do with
why is this
players
buffering so
returning
much?
the game and leaving the game. So a lot of the money supply actually sits in inactive and versus active accounts. And as I learned recently, there's the calculation of money supply is not always homogeneous across various data sources, and that's it's a 23-year-old game, so you will have a lot of wealth coming and a lot of wealth going and accumulating in different parts. So part of that is that's another dimension you've got to design around is, okay, so how many how many very rich veterans is this event going to bring back to the game? Which Catalyst did quite a few. Catalyst / pandemic horde collapse at the same time did.
Yeah.
You know, that was quite a perfect storm of
Cataclysm and the horde collapsing. What game are we talking about? Ah!
I think of wealth coming, of players returning to the game, and you know, that's not something that you could have planned. But I guess, you know, it's, if I were CCP, I'd always be happy about, you know, big things happening in the game that brings people back, right? Whether it's for them positive or negative, it's something happening.
Yeah, I think I'd rather have them back if there's, you know, an injection of wealth into the, you know, ecosystem. Great. If there's more hoarding, if there's new problems, amazing. There's just more work for us to do, right? Like we'll solve whatever happens next. But it's great that people are back and playing.
This is the velocity of ISK. So this is the speed at which every ISK exchanges hands. So over a 28-day period, how many times does an ISK exchange hand? You can see here that it's about 0.5, and it's even less if you take out Plex and contracts. But in the end, I think this would indicate that over, you know, the last, 10 years, people have just hoarded more than they did before. So they're more reluctant to spend their ISK. That might have a ton of reasons, but, you know, is this like, are you aware of this? Is this like something that you're actively working against, or is this really just, well, you know, there's more people, there's more veterans, there's more wealth, so why shouldn't velocity of this go down?
Yeah,
I think that this, I'm going to cut him off and give my version of it first, but I think that a lot of this has to do with the fact that, like, if we're looking at this chart, which I will make this big for a second. Hold on. I think. Will I? Can I? There it is. So if we look at this chart, we can see that the fall off is around 2019, which, I mean, at the time, a lot of people complained that it was like, oh, it's scarcity or whatever. Look at the game is dying and all that stuff, but it's flattened out. Remember, this is ISK changing hands. So the key here is that, you know what was happening a lot during 2017, 2019? People building and trading and selling capitals and super capitals. Like, yes, they have changed some stuff to make capitals kind of bigger deal again, but like, you guys don't even comprehend how many rogue walls existed during the reign of the rogue wall. How many people were just buying up rogue walls or whatever over whatever. So like, there's going to be a lot of really big amounts of ISK changing hands during that time, because there was just a huge glut of value being produced and being traded. So, and this is one of those things that I always try to concern, like, this comes up all the time where it's like, oh, you know, the price is falling. Wow, like, that's bad. It's like, you know, this is happening in Plex too, right? Plex is currently dropping quite a bit, and people are like acting like the sky is falling. Is it the fact that Plex is dropping, or is it that Plex was artificially or probably too high before and now it's been corrected, right? Like, a lot of these things, like, this was a surge during that time, or like, you know, is at a height that was unsustainable. The entirety of scarcity happened because we had become too fat and happy in our lives. And so, like, we needed, it was so bad that it wasn't even enough to just cut off a lot of the faucets. They also had to bleed us out a little bit because we had built up too much stuff. And so, like, I would argue that this lower level may just be the healthy norm, as opposed to the higher level as being like, oh, what went wrong here? It might actually, like, this is, in my opinion, it's a good sign that scarcity kind of corrected an issue that was happening, and it's stabilized since then. But again, let me know what you think. Am I wrong? I don't know.
You think about it, for sure. It's definitely one of my cursed design problems in EVE 2. I think, you know, being able to hoard and collect and hold on to things forever is very easy as well. And so, and also the big challenge being, like, everything it's a sandbox.
He just used a term that I want to clarify a little bit because I love it. There's actually a really great GDC talk called cursed design elements or something like that. Cursed design. It's the idea that, like, okay, so basically, you know, design is about balancing these different things, and a cursed design problem is when like, you have multiple things that are in direct conflict with each other, so you can't necessarily resolve it. I can't think of a good example off the top of my head, but like it's the idea of like there's two things that both need to be true, and it's not resolvable like there's no solution to the problem, because making it good for one is bad for another. EVE is actually full of these because of the fact that it is a sandbox and there's so much interconnection. There's so many different things that is, what is bad for one person is good for another person. So, it is true that a lot of the things that CCP has to deal with are effectively cursed design problems that don't, and we act like there's a simple solution, but there often isn't. These are things that where there's two forces at play that are unresolvable, and so you have to figure out how to balance between that.
Box and everything is in player hands, so we can't force that. So this matters.
It's like in this case, like CCP needs to both balance the economy but also give us autonomy. This goes back to like the nullsec thing. Like CCP people in nullsec complaining that CCP is not giving them content, when they also complain if they get like new PvE or whatever. It's like nullsec is player driven. If it's not player driven, then it's bad. But at the same time, CCP needs to give players content. Well, okay, but you're the content. Do something about it. So from CCP's point of view, that is like a cursed design problem. Does that make sense?
Matters, absolutely, and like I don't feel alarmed by it currently, but it is something that I think about as we are designing things.
Yeah, it's like I'm definitely not alarmed by it. I mean, since I've been streaming EVE, the velocity of ISK has gone down. I've been streaming for 6 years and been doing economic reviews every week, and it's been going down, and it's more that I think. I mean, there's a lot of economic theory around the velocity of ISK, but certainly I think the risk of inflation would be higher if the velocity was higher. So if people all of a sudden started throwing all of their ISK around, then certainly that would have an impact on inflation, at least in theory. Yeah. And so it's in a way this is also an inflation hedge for sure. But on the other hand, this also indicates less transaction tax, as we were just talking about. If you have more is going around, you will definitely have more things to work with,
unless it's contracts,
and then in the end more faucets to give out. Yeah, do we get a guest appearance, Okami? Do we get a guest appearance?
I'm working on the guest appearance here. We got
I mean, for those of you, I hope. Oh, look at that! I hope you all have seen CCP Doggy before. He was in the mines with us. He was in the cave.
Hold on. We love puppies here on this stream. Oh my god, his puppy's so cute.
We got that.
I mean, for those of you, I hope. Oh, look at that! I hope you all have seen CCP Doggy before. He was in the
mines with us.
He was in the cave.
Lava
yeah.
cave. Yeah,
that's so cute.
I watched every minute of that stream. That was amazing.
Oh.
I loved it.
And
since I'm seeing,
chilly, but super fun.
Oh yeah, that's the good thing about watching it on stream. You don't feel the chill. But since I just saw CCP Jotun in chat, my favorite part was him standing around in the background while you had your interview, and he looked kind of lost.
Yes,
a big man in a cave.
CCP Doggo actually got a little spooked by that at one point, I think. The big man in the cave.
What a cute dog, really. Are you allowed to take him into the office?
I think technically we're not supposed to have pets there, but I can break the rules once in a while.
Yeah, once it's like, I know you have a very family-friendly office, at least I learned.
Yeah, definitely.
So this is a big one. Mineral price index. That has come down by almost half since it's arguably very high point in 2025. But this means cheaper ships. This certainly, if you look at the history, this simply looks healthier, right? And I know we had the scarcity period that you guys don't call scarcity, but the mineral redistribution, the resource redistribution going on. What's the talk at CCP, or what's your design hat on MPI? Is this at some point? Sure, mining income drops, but it seems to not be stopping mining yet, looking at the numbers. On the other hand, everyone loves cheaper ships and modules, I think, except for traders holding a lot of them. Is this, how do you balance that mining income versus ship prices? That seems to be like a very difficult decision to make.
Yeah, it is a difficult decision. I think maybe there's this perfect world, this perfect equation where it all adds up and there's the correct number to hit, but
Probably.
we haven't found that yet. I wish it were that easy. To me, it's really about looking at these indices both together and independently, and seeing like MPI, for example, was a problem. Like you could see that problem happening, and you really called that out for us, Oz, which is great. And so then it's like we have to do something about that. It's time, and you can see a trend there that needs to be tackled. And then it's also about like just listening to everyone and the players, and like, are people able to build the ships? Are they feeling like they're at a price where they're comfortable to take them out and go have a dread brawl or something? Because that's the funny, if they want to do that thing that's fun. And if the prices and the effort to get into doing those fun things isn't there, then we need to look at it. So it's both the indices, and it's feedback, and it's just feelings sometimes too.
Somebody in chat is asking, what is MPI? But it's a very good question. That's sometimes I get used to just hanging out with my economy nerds. That's the mineral price index. So this graph shows all the price indices that, granted, are defined by CCP, and some of them make more sense than others, but especially the mineral price index. It simply looks at the basic minerals in game, or the basic and advanced minerals in game from asteroid ore, and it looks at their price compared to the origin at 2004, and you see the huge spike, which is the resource redistribution that I was just talking about. And since then, especially over the last year, there's been a lot of measures introduced that have made the mineral prices drop, and it looks like it's not. You're looking at the current mining numbers, and especially this last month, it looks like it's not going to be the end of it. It looks like it's going to come down more. And to be frank, one thing I should mention is it doesn't include moon materials, right? And so all of the Tech 2 production that you see, it's not only dependent, and it's mostly not dependent on the mineral price index. Part of it is, but it's mostly moon materials. And so that's why you're seeing the primary producer index and the secondary producer index, which is the blue line and the green line, not spiking as hard, because they also depend on other components, not just materials. So not just minerals. And that's actually, I think the MPI is often looked at a little bit hysterical in the EVE community, because it looks like, oh my God, it looks like the Himalaya. But it's, it's a lot of tier 1. So especially tier 1 production is dependent on the MPI. Everything after that is a lot of other components that, some are also high in price and some are lower. But, in the end, it's I think, going towards a much healthier place.
Hold on. Among the information your scanners pick out, the badly damaged station manager ships are the logs containing conversation indicating the manager himself had an R&R hideout not far away from here. So another escalation. We get this one. Is it this one? 5 jumps away? Yeah. Okay, cool. Also, the other thing about a Stormbringer is you got to keep an eye on your pack rat, because you can hit it, and that would be bad. Or, I mean, your mobile depot, or mobile tractor unit, I should say. Although you can, one of the fun things is that you can shoot your mobile tractor unit, and it'll jump to all of the guys around you, which is a fun way to kind of pre-lock people.
Is where we were, and I have to let you in on a secret, which you probably already know, Okami. But like when I look at mineral prices and the question of, is this going to make miners stop mining? Then the thing with so many miners is that nothing will stop them at mining, right? So yeah. I think one of the miner profits' biggest enemy is miners. It's the same with hauling, by the way, in this game. It's just like people complain that the reward and the profits are so low, but they continue doing the same thing because it's fun, which you can't.
Right, they're mining. A lot of people are mining not necessarily just to make money, but they're mining because that's what they want to do, right? And so they're going to complain about it because they want their work to be valuable, but they're going to do it either way, right? Or I mean, there's definitely some people that are going to do. We do see this all the time where people swap between activities, and we can see evidence of that in the MER. And of course, they can always just hop into another game, but ultimately, if somebody's hobby is to just at the end of the week burn some time and just relax while mining in a belt, they're going to do that regardless of whether or not they're getting paid a little bit more or a little bit less.
can't blame them either, because it is a game. That's the big difference between reality and a video game, is that, well, if you like the activity of mining, then that is part of the reward, right? Like that is part of the profit.
Oh, hey,
just like
hold on.
The space trucking fantasy.
Did we get another rare spawn? Is that what happened? Hey, yes, I did. Dark Blood. I did get another rare spawn, and it's not every time with this one. So I got a Dark Blood focused medium pulse laser. So that's another 23 million plus the brass tax or brass tag. That's cool. Yeah, and that's it for that value. But we still have this one more wreck to check out. So we're going to go grab this and then head to that wreck. Oh no, it started tractoring it right then. Oh, well, whatever. So yeah, that is a very good point.
Is part of the profit of hauling in EVE Online, and that's again another dimension you gotta balance around. And if people would stop mining,
but this is why I say it's a numbers game. You can't get it in your head. It's like, oh, this site didn't give me that much. This happens a lot in hacking too. It's like, get rid of that stuff. Again, it's just like mining, right? I'm going through this because I want to fly through space and shoot at people. So the fact that I get a drop just makes it like, yay. You know, if you just keep doing it because that's what you want to do. I've said this for a long time. The best ISK isn't the best ISK per hour. It's the thing that you want to do for the most amount of hours, right? Like if something has a high ISK per hour ratio, but I burn out in 30 minutes versus a thing that I can do for 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, you know, mining in high sec doesn't give you that much ISK per hour. But, you know, if I let it run all Sunday while I clean my house, then guess what? I end up with 200 million in my cargo hold, 200 million I would not have gotten otherwise. Oh no. Okay, well, hold on. Too bad I can't just be like, hey guys, I'm in an Edencom ship. All right, so let's just go back around there. We're going to skip Saren. We're going to go around the long way. T1 to T3 wormhole exploration for me. The cat and mouse game is just fun. Yeah, exactly. Like, that's the thing. Like, the point is to figure out how to do what you want to do efficiently and effectively. Not, if you allow the ISK to control what you do, you're going to make yourself miserable. You know, it goes back to that quote by the dude who made Civilization, where it's like, given the opportunity, players will optimize the fun out of their game. Like, if you're not having fun in EVE, you got to ask yourself, am I the problem? Oh shit. My computer just did the thing where, like, it might nuke. So if I fall apart, if my stream dies... Hold on. Oh god. Let's close some stuff before anything happens. All right. Let's hope that helps. Okay, if my stream crashes or whatever, I'm sorry, but like it just hitched for just a second, so hopefully it's going to be fine. We're going to keep going.
If mineral prices would go down significantly, then the prices would actually balance. But in the end, it's not.
Oh, there's two cosmic signatures, new cosmic signatures.
Yeah,
here.
you're absolutely right. Like what you kind of also touch on there is part of game design is mastery, where it's like you have acquired a set of skills and a way of doing things over time that are to you fun or enjoyable, and like being able to log into the game and just kind of hit that flow state or hang out with your friends and do that thing. Like that's what.
Dude, Okami is dropping so many like game design, not buzzwords, but like terms that I find it really fun. So mastery, like his statement about mastery. So there's this idea, there's this psychological thing called satisfaction theory, where they did this research about like what causes satisfaction in people's lives. You know, is it wealth? Is it family? Is it whatever? And ultimately what they figured out was that there's 3 factors that leads to long-lasting satisfaction, which is autonomy, mastery, and purpose or relatedness, right? Autonomy is the feeling that you get to make your own decisions. Mastery is the feeling that your decision, or you are improving in the way that you do things, and that is reflectant upon by a higher quality of the result. And purpose or relatedness is that what you are doing is part of some larger whole, which is actually one of the reasons why, like, jobs these days end up being so unfulfilling, and they think that this is the reason why things like World of Warcraft become so popular, because this is actually what led to this question. It's like, well, if people complain about going to work and working all day, why do they go to work all day and then come home and do menial work tasks, you know, thing like World of Warcraft questing and stuff? And the reason why is because they're not gaining that sense of meaning and belonging from their work, and so they're seeking a kind of replacement for work that gives them that satisfaction point. And so, you know, this is actually a big thing when it comes to like player retention. You know, you have what gets somebody to join a game and try out a game and stay with a game for a little bit, and then, you know, so there's all these different factors that gets people to try out a game, but ultimately the thing that gets people to stay in a game long term is autonomy, mastery, and purpose, which is why EVE Online is actually pretty good as far, like, this is why, like, if people do stick with EVE Online, they end up becoming incredibly long-term players, because EVE Online gives you that sense of relatedness and purpose that is kind of unmatched in a lot of environments. And so, you know, this idea of the connectedness of everything, the fact that you're part of this larger world, and the fact that your choices make an impact in that ends up being a huge reason why people find fulfillment in their EVE playtime. The other one was, what was the other one he said? Hold on.
Skills and a way of doing things over time that are to you fun.
Oh, flow. So flow state is this idea of like, okay, well, if flow state is part of, well, it's actually part of flow theory, where there's, the idea is that different emotional states occur. Hold on. Let me see if I can find this real quick. I should be able to. Flow theory. There's a chart. I wrote about this. In fact, the very last article I ever wrote for Crossing Zebras was an article called "Is EVE a Bad Game or Is It Just You?" Which talked about this particular topic, actually. Let me see if I can pull this up now. Make this bigger. Okay, so what we have here is a chart that shows on the y-axis, you have, this is important, perceived challenge level versus perceived skill level, okay? So the idea is that if you feel that your skill level is low, but the challenge is low, you end up not caring, right? That leads to apathy. If you end up having a medium, if you feel like you're average, you're not skilled at the thing, but you definitely are not a noob at the thing, but you perceive the challenge as low, this results in boredom. Whereas if you feel yourself as being skilled at a thing and its challenge is low, then you find that relaxing, right? You know, if you're good at a thing and you're just doing it, you know, that can be a way to get your relaxation down, right? And so this is why I say, like, boredom is a mechanic in EVE Online, and this has to do with like the hollow hardcore concept, where like when you first join in the game, you feel like your skill level is low, and you feel like you feel like everything's super hard or like complicated, and so you end up with this anxiety state. But what ends up happening is, as your perceived skill level goes up, you suddenly realize that all of these things that you were scared about, all, you know, the game, any given aspect in EVE is actually not that hard, right? Once you've gotten your once you've gotten your Ishtar, or, you know, you figure out how to go to a belt and start mining things, all of a sudden your perceived challenge drops down to low, and your skill level grows up. And so then you end up in this boredom state. So this is why I say that boredom is a mechanic in EVE Online that tells you you should grow your ideas, because what ends up happening is a player comes into the game, sees the grand scope of Eve, and immediately becomes intimidated by it. And so even whether or not they realize it or not, what a lot of players do instinctively is kind of carve out their little niche, right? This is my one thing that I know. I'm not going to worry about that stuff. I'm not going to worry about that stuff because this is the stuff I know, right? And so they dig into that, and then they master that. And so now that's easy, and they end up being bored with it. But they don't even think about the fact that they've cut out everything here and cut out everything here. So if you know, a good example of this is like the Abyss, right? A lot of people will jump into the Abyss and are highly intimidated by it. And so then they will find a ship that like a Gila build or something like that makes it so they can just brain dead it, right? And what ends up happening is after a few more runs, they end up getting bored, and then they blame the game, not themselves, the game. Remember, given the opportunity, the player will optimize the fun out of their experience. So now they've managed to take the perceived challenge level and drop it. They don't feel like they're skilled yet. So this isn't, there are some people, like I find the Abyss very relaxing, right? Because it allows me to kind of engage in what I like to do and, you know, whatever, at least until something goes wrong. But like, if you don't necessarily see yourself as highly skilled, but you do see the challenge as low, you end up becoming bored. But then the player doesn't then think, okay, well, what I need to do is add some of that challenge. I had cut out all of this challenge from my gameplay in order to make it something I can tackle. But now I'm bored, and they don't think, oh, I should add back in some of that extra challenge. I should try different ships. I should figure out, okay, well, the next thing I could do is, now that I'm getting this stuff from the Abyss, what about building these Triglavian ships and selling them? What about, you know, interacting with different aspects of the game through this method? That's a good way to kind of continue your Eve journey. But if you just stick at boredom and then quit, then yeah, you in a way, you've kind of done it to yourself. But either way, the point is that the dream is flow. This is like, if you've ever done something that you are reasonably good at, but like something that is challenging to you, but you can do, you end up losing hours doing this thing, whether it's drawing or like maybe like a video game like Dark Souls or something like that. You know, you get into this state that is very pleasurable, very positive, and you just, time melts away. And this is considered to be one of the most positive emotional experiences that people can have. And this is the state known as flow. And so a lot of games are attempting to balance this out, where how do we make the difficulty curve such that we keep people in a flow state as much as possible? And the problem is that Eve is actually sort of poor at keeping people in a flow state, just because it is so, you know, open-ended, player-driven, etc. Players are allowed to optimize the fun out of their game. So, but like, I remember back in emerging conduit days, I would end up in a flow state there, because it's just like you run site after site after site, and boom, 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 and next thing you know, 4 hours have gone by, and you know, it was great the whole time. So you know, this is that's kind of what the various things that he was referring to.
Or enjoyable, and like being able to log into the game and just kind of hit that flow state or hang out with your friends and do that thing, like that's what's giving you the little brain tickles. And so totally, like, some people would stop mining, some people would probably go do something else, but it will never fully stop. It'll never get that bad, and it will kind of somewhat self-balance too.
Warp drive active.
There are several things several activities in this game that I really enjoy, that I do, even though I don't
Already being done
need any ISK at all. And in the end, like, I almost never do things that are completely not profitable, just because, you know, that's my personal like dopamine hit. But
Yeah,
you know, something like Abyssals, for example, you know, that thrill of getting loot and then getting it out in time, is that hits a completely different part, or that's a different dopamine hit for me than other activities, and that's why I really enjoy them. And you know, I totally get, well, you know, if you have a fleet of, you know, a Rorqual and 6 barges, and you've got that set up and you've done that for 10 years, then you're not going to stop because this month the MPI went down, right? I mean, that's just not going to happen. If your friends are out there mining and you're having beers, then that's what's gonna happen on that
Totally.
Saturday evening. All right, let's see. Do we have anything? No, that's the same. I wanted to talk about this one. I mean, I don't really know the formula that goes into this. So this is looking at the actual price of modules and ships. So I'm going to just make a general observation here, and that is ship prices have dropped down significantly, which is unsurprising. But as I said earlier, it's not just about minerals. This is also about moon materials that have dropped significantly from the introduction of Metanox moon drills, for example. Yep. And it's also salvage that has also dropped in price quite significantly for the most part through new exploration sites in Null, for example. And so overall, prices are falling, a lot of it by design, I guess, right? And
Yep.
I don't think we've had at least I haven't heard from the community any negative feedback on, oh, it's dropping too quickly or anything. So I personally think we're in a fairly good state, and even if prices drop further, I don't think we're going to face any larger issues that we would have if prices were rising. Is that what your understanding of the situation as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think grateful to have you and folks like yourself on the CSM to kind of keep a finger to the wind as well, just in terms of sentiment and how people are feeling. But looking at this trend and the data, it all feels good. And really, like, coming back to the start of this, like the success we're seeing and the amount of people coming back and the amount of people playing, like, says something that we're kind of in a healthy spot. So we'll watch it, and as opposed to waiting if something does start to get to a bad place and having to make a bigger drastic change, we'll take a look at either a balance update and expansion or a major update if that's the case. But happy with where things are and not really planning on throttling or changing anything significantly soon.
Cool. Then I think in terms of the MER, we're done. I have
Did it.
Awesome. Okami, I have I asked the community if they, when I went live earlier, if they wanted to submit questions on my Discord, and I
Okay, let's hope this is good stuff
here that I would like to ask you if you are down for it.
Yeah. Sure. Let's try. Let's wing it.
One question is about the state of HiSec. So I think we've had several null focused expansions. We've had faction warfare or low sec expansions. It looks like it sounds like from the dev blog that the next expansions are also going to be a very much a at least partly impacting faction war.
To be clear, 2019 to 2021 was basically the HiSec time. Like, there was so much love given to HiSec at that point. But
warfare,
yeah,
right? Because that's what the military campaigns sound like.
Yeah.
What's your view on HiSec? Like, it can be very important to get people to initially join the game and to kind of learn the ropes before they set out there. What's your feeling on HiSec?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You nailed it. I think that we've only really kind of come forward to talk about the military campaigns in the next set of expansions, but I think that players will also be seeing a lot of new and interesting changes to HiSec as well. To me, it's kind of about creating this like funnel of complexity and safety for newer players who are coming into the game, and trying to get them into the bigger sandbox. And so, HiSec is a really important place to catch a lot of people. And to be quite honest, looking at our data and stuff, there's a lot of people that just live there and just enjoy chilling out and being in HiSec and playing that game. So I'd love to, as we talked about PvE content and stuff earlier, really take a look at what that content looks like in the future. I don't really have a big, plan or roadmap I can reveal now, other than like it's kind of on my mind and something I'm thinking about. But there will definitely be some HiSec changes coming up that I think will be impactful and it's important.
Yeah, I think this is one of those things that, like, so everybody's really focused on faction warfare and the faction warfare component to all this, and this is kind of what happened with Uprising 2. But even back in Uprising, we talked about, like, well, how do we make this meaningful outside of just faction warfare? How do we stop thinking about the way that factions interact with each other exclusively through the mechanics of plex fighting and, territory control in the war zones, right? Because, there's other things that they want to do. And we have other examples of that, like the building of the Stargates, Shadow Wars, whatever, and so, like, how do we open up the idea of what it means to be supporting a faction outside of just the mechanics of faction warfare as we think of it today. Now, when they did it for Uprising, obviously they were pretty much, you know, it was a revamp of the actual faction warfare mechanics. But even then, they were talking about how much they wanted to like take this to the next step, etc. So I really do feel like that's what a lot of this is. That's why they keep stressing its impact on HiSec, its impact in other places, and like things like Stargates and stuff. Like, this is not just about changes to faction warfare, because to be frank, the faction warfare mechanics as it is right now are actually in an incredibly good spot. This is about growing the idea of what it means to support the faction outside of just faction warfare, right? So how can we have hauling missions, or how can we make home fronts tie to, you know, faction agenda? How can we make all the, you know, they talked about before, like, well, what happens if there's a task where people have to bring things to the command post in order to get advantage in the front lines, for example. So I really do feel like military campaigns are going to be playing into that, especially with what they said about like trying to get newer players involved. You need to have activities on all different levels that allows people to engage with this stuff and kind of participate in the living story. The best part about this is, like, people like me can then go, okay, well, then this happened. This thing is here because these players did this. You know, the players did this, and that led to this happening, and then which led the player, and then the players did this, which led to this. You know, it's kind of like a conversation, more or less, between player action and the empires trying to get things happening. You know, one could argue, although it's a bit of a weak argument, but one could argue that the reason why all of this stuff with Celis Agard and why she was so weakened, if they had won the race for the hives, chances are it wouldn't have played out the same way. You know, Arshat, you know, the Edencom guys taking the Arshat transmuter ended up like becoming a major plot point later on. Is that what CCP had in mind originally? Probably not, but that's the whole point of like a living universe, right? So that's why I'm so excited about these military campaigns, because it really feels like they've taken what they've been doing for the last 5 years, or trying to do, playing around with the ideas of from the last few years, and like trying to make systems that actually reinforce those things and make it easier for them to make these things happen. So that way there feels like there's things happening all the time. It makes the empires feel like they're living groups that have wants. The way I've always put it is like, the game should play as if there's a giant game of Stellaris being played out by the NPC empires, and we as Capsuleers are like the X factor in there. We talk about how like, oh well, we should have, you know, your choices should have meaning in EVE Online. Your choices matter, the impact and all that sort of stuff. But like, your choices don't matter if the universe is static. You know, if the Gallente are the exact same tomorrow as today, doesn't matter how many missions you ran, then running the missions doesn't really have that much of an impact. You could say, oh, what the market or blah, 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 but like ultimately, as far as the universe goes, the universe doesn't respond to us. If the empires actually want to do things and are trying to do things, and our efforts can either push forward those things or stymie those things, now our impact really does matter. Now it really is a living universe, and that should be the ultimate goal. And that is one of the things that's always frustrated me with people that are like, oh, you know, CCP shouldn't care about the lore or focus as much on the lore or the empires or blah, 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 blah. It's about player decisions. Well, guess what? If the empires aren't doing anything, then the players don't have anything to decide for. You know, if the Gallente are trying to do something, yeah, not everybody has to engage with it. But if the Gallente are like, we want to build this Stargate, now every single person can choose. Do I want to help with building that Stargate? Do I want to hurt building that Stargate? Do I want to go do something totally different and ignore that Stargate? Those are all valid choices and should be supported. But none of those choices can even happen until the Gallente want to build a Stargate, right? So that's why it's so important for the empires and for the NPCs to be doing things, because that makes things matter. Someone shoots epilepsy missiles at the FC. Man, people are so mad about the missiles. I mean, I get it. They look like ass. It is weird that like they managed to fix the wormhole thing without fixing the missile thing. I would expect that the missile thing should be fixed soon. I wasn't trying to make excuses that saying like, oh, it should take a long time. They should have fixed it by now. I'm just wanting to open up the ideas about like how much of a complicated issue some of these things could be. Anywho, let's keep going. We're wrapping things up, I think.
The fourth
Boom.
region that we haven't talked about would be wormholes.
This is what I love. Whole room blows up.
I know I heard somebody, like one of the three of you said on the last director's video that you had, one of you said, yes, you know, there will also be changes coming to wormholes, because I know wormholers, you know, do feel neglected a little bit by the most recent expansions. Is there anything you can talk about wormholes and what's coming?
Look, wormholers and feel, oh shoot, I hit F1 on the wrong screen. Wormholers, feel free to call me out on this. I'm going to this is just a challenge, because I do hear, like, I've been hearing like, oh, wormholers are mad because they said that they were going to get something. Like, wasn't the Odysseus like the biggest single gift to wormholers in a long time? I don't know. I get that they need to do more. I'm not saying that they shouldn't, but like, to pretend like they didn't do anything, the Odysseus is such a fucking blessing to wormholers. I don't know.
There.
Sorry, could you remind me what a wormhole is?
Oh,
No.
Oh, we deleted them already,
shit!
didn't we?
Yeah, sure. No. I know people.
Oh, that's
feel
not
like
public
that. I'm
yet,
just
yeah.
yeah, I'm just joking. Yeah, it's a tricky one, because we always have to just look at where people are at and what they're doing when we make these decisions. Should we have a full wormhole expansion at some point? Maybe. That might be cool. That's not happening right now, so we're looking at what are some meaningful ways we can, you know, kind of give back to wormholes. There's a lot of, like, I'm in the Wormhole Union Discord. There's a lot of really great ideas that continue to surface there. So some of the things that we'll see are just like, there's just going to be more content. Some of it's content that we've used in interesting ways in the past that will be somewhat exclusive to wormholes. And then there are other just sort of balance changes that we're taking a look at. Maybe some changes around taxes and how taxes work in wormholes. Something I'm thinking about. And then, like, sort of future, you know, facing vision is just like more like when we started wormholes, they were not meant to be habitable, but they are. So kind of just.
Wow, those are super interesting. So what would be content that was out that could be, I mean, obviously like new sites or whatever, but like taxes, it would be interesting if they were like, if they changed the tax rates in wormholes. I've always wanted to do like one of my major goals is a free ported keep star in a low class wormhole. So that way I can guard it with capitals and you can't bring capitals to bash it. But like a free port, like our own personal like player Tortuga. And so it would be interesting if that could also be like a tax haven. That'd be cool. I'd like that. Yet to figure out what the ship is for. Probably should ask in Discords. I mean, it is like the ultimate rolling ship, and it has a bunch of other cool things about it for wormholers. I know. I mean, the wormholers I know were really happy with it, but I don't know. Whatever.
Being like, okay, well, like, how do we make that cool? So we can take a look at how Sov works and say, can we have some sense of customization in there? So those are the types of things we're talking about. That's not coming just yet. But we will definitely see things like balance changes, new content, and
also for all you wormholers that are like, oh, they said that we were going to get stuff and now they keep pushing it off. Let me tell you, wormhole or nullsec, they even said like, oh yeah, this is going to be the big year for nullsec or whatever. And that was the year we got Uprising, because again, it's an agile development studio. So they're like, yeah, the next thing we want to tackle is nullsec. And then like a week later in a meeting, they're like, oh, I guess we're definitely not focusing on nullsec right now. It's going to be at least another year away. So, you know, you're not the first ones that this has happened to.
And then just trying to figure out how we weave these other things into all the other work we're doing too.
Yeah, I think sometimes it doesn't even have to be specific new wormhole content. It's just like when the new content hit to also apply to wormholes, which, you know, in the past years, sometimes I think the community has felt a little bit.
Yeah. Well, it gets special bonuses in every wormhole, like weather type. It has good gas huffing. It has the exploration bonuses. It has the mass entangler bonus, or, you know, it can do the mass entangler. And it allows for refitting in space with the fleet. So it's just the ultimate like Swiss Army knife for a wormholer.
Neglected, which, you know.
Yeah.
it comes with the
I
territory of
love my
wormholes.
wormholes. I actually really love wormholes personally. Like I play a lot in wormholes.
I do as well.
And yeah, I wish, there will come a day. That's all I can say, where you will get your rejuvenation or whatever. But like,
The R word.
As a faction warfare pilot, I will say, God damn it, hold on. As a faction warfare pilot, I will say that the longer you have to wait for the update, often the better it is, right? If an update takes longer for them to get to your stuff, sometimes it's because the stuff that they need to do is super juicy, you know?
Yeah. Yes. I'll break that one out every once in a while.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think a wormhole expansion would, like, when you're done with the next set of expansions, I think it could work really, really well, because it's always been, it sounds cool. It's always been this cool part of space. There's, it's unknown. And even for new players, I think it's this like daunting new play.
I've gotten lucky with the rare drops today, but I've gotten none of the normal stuff that I get for money, like the Skinner components. I only got the Skinner component off the one guy who was also the rare drop. And I also haven't gotten any of the pink warp disruptors. That usually is where like I get most of my money, even though I'm looting a lot of the wrecks. I guess I wasn't looting all of the wrecks as I was running around, but I just find it odd how little of the normal doodads that I pick up to get my money when doing high-sec anomalies and stuff I've been getting. I don't know. It's strange.
And I think it could use some love. And I mean I see Mick Fightmaster, while we talking about him, the CSM rep for wormholes, he put in the Discord channel for the question, don't forget to make a comment about the lack of wormhole data in the MER, which I will and I have, but I know that you're not the one making those decisions, are you?
Yes. No, I'm not. I mean, I can bug people, but it's where is my energy best spent is the question.
Yeah. No, I mean, I know that the
Designing things for wormholes or getting the wormhole data, which one do you want?
Yeah, Mick wants the design, design part of that for sure. I think, and you can't focus on everything at once. I think we've seen a lot of attention on the ESI lately, and there's been a lot of, there was a long backlog of things, and that team has really caught up on a lot of things, which is very, very cool. And so I can deal with I understand, I fully understand that the MER, for example, is like an add-on. Like it's not, it doesn't. It's a service. It doesn't impact the quality of the game directly. So I am, very courteous when I ask about things on the MER. I request changes to the MER. But in the end, it's also part what makes Eve, and what makes this, this sandbox game so cool that we have something like that. So we do appreciate it. Cool.
Absolutely.
Okami, I have a last question. The last question is.
Let's go.
I know you can't spoil anything, right? At least, but I know you don't. You also don't know fully what you have said and what you haven't said. So, open question for the next 3 years, or the next 3 expansions. This next set. What are you most excited about? What concept? What content? What are you most excited about? What do you think is going to be the biggest game changer?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think we're going to see a lot of just quality of life and just good changes, just really obvious changes that should be done to the game. I think we're going to see some merging of old systems and things like that. But the new big one, like we have talked about, is campaigns. I think that I'm personally really excited about it. It's I haven't revealed everything just yet either. More to come at FanFest, but not only for the experience that I think everyone as players can get from it. It's like one of the things that I really want more of in Eve is sort of how we can tell stories in Eve together between CCP and the players. And
That's so
I'm excited
exciting to
for that.
hear.
I know we've tried little things over the last few years with like Drifter Crisis and stuff like that. But the things that excite me about games are and I know a lot of newer players too, is like intrinsically when you